But yeah, I'll turn my camera on. Don't worry.
Well, Professor, I've been wanting to meet you and talk to you for a while now.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem. I'm very cognizant sometimes of people's time. How long you think we have you for?
An hour. It's good.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
All right. You're
plenty of
going to be
time.
one of those. Okay.
What's up, Shadowhawk?
Yeah. Yeah. War Party, man. Tell us a little bit. I mean, about the journey. My gosh, you were shadow banned and just all types of stuff. It's been a long road, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's taking longer than I had hoped. I was wishing I'd been done with, all 6 issues by now, but
Yeah.
just the thing about crowdfunding is, you're building something and it takes time and unforeseen things happen and they come into play, and then before you know it, you're like, wow, something that should have taken me 6 months is taking me 2 years. So it's very easy to sort of, get overwhelmed at times with all the all the things coming your way, but it's good stuff. It's been pretty much, aside from the shadow banning, it's been all positive. Great
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
things happening. So it's
Now,
very exciting.
did you launch off Michael Bancroft's? I can't remember.
I did. This is what's funny. When I launched, I didn't launch anywhere. I just launched.
You just launched it.
Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't even have a Twitter when I launched.
Yeah.
My channel had maybe 200 subscribers or something like that. I had some people on Facebook that I, you know, mass flag emailed. Hey, I'm launching. Of course, I think I only made $800 the first day. And I
Wow.
thought that was good at the time. I was like, yes, this is
Well,
great.
yeah,
I'm on
yeah.
the, you know.
It didn't go unnoticed.
Yeah, well, my goal was 10,000 though. So
Oh
then
yeah.
within the next few weeks it was just limping along.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was in one of Ethan's chats, and Rick Saylor was one of the first ones to sort of start promoting the book because he was an early backer, and he mentioned in the chat, you need to go on Michael Bancroft's. I didn't know who Michael Bancroft was. This is back when his show was not big at all. Like, this was like 2020. So yeah, so I emailed Michael or through, I think through Instagram, and yeah, he had me on. So he was the first one to have me on,
Okay.
but it
All right.
didn't launch anywhere. It barely hit its goal by the 60-day mark. I mean, I was
I know
crawling
that's
towards
nail biting,
10,000.
isn't it?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think it hit 14 something.
I just delivered my first book, and I remember the feeling of, back this time last year and it felt good to hit that mark. Like I think 3 days before the first 30 days were up, but I had a very small goal with my little ash can. So
Yeah, I mean, I had to set it high because it's an
yeah.
expensive project because it's 6 issues. It's funny too because 10,000 wouldn't even come close to covering it.
Well,
Like, it's not even close.
forgive forgive my ignorance, but I don't know anything about your background. Why you're in comics. I've always thought you've had a great looking project. You must be a lover of history.
Definitely.
Tell us some, about how War Party, or have you done? Is this your first comic? I don't know. You've been
No.
in it a
I
while.
actually,
Tell
I
us
was a
about
Civil
yourself.
War reenactor in high school.
Oh,
Yeah,
Confederate or Union?
both. I
Okay.
was in a Confederate unit called the 8th Florida Infantry, but because reenactments, you need more Union than Confederate.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
times, Confederate troops would do what's called galvanize. So you'd have two uniforms, and if a event needed more blue than gray, you would galvanize. You dress
I
as
went to
blue.
college with a gentleman that did. He's Confederate, and he wore it to college every day.
You can't do that today.
Yeah.
Can't even wear the
Yeah.
blue one today. You'll
That was
probably
back
get
in
in
the
trouble. Yeah.
80s. That was
Yeah.
back in the 80s. But
But yeah, it kind of hit its peak in the early 90s. That was when movies like Glory had come out in
yeah.
Gettysburg. And I mean, it's the hobby has really fallen off. I mean, I think it's probably less than 50% today what it was
What was
then.
the movie that was the Union prison movie?
Andersonville, yeah.
Andersonville. That
Yeah,
was a good one.
that was another one. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was back when Turner, Ted Turner was cranking out these Civil War movies, and
yeah.
Hollywood was doing some Civil War stuff. And whenever they needed to do a movie about the Civil War, they would call the reenactment units all over
Well,
the
they just came
country.
out with Emancipation, I think it was called, or something, about the slavery type thing. It might have been some type of woke culture thing with,
Yeah, I don't know if it had battles in it. I haven't seen it. I mean, if there's no
yeah,
battles, obviously you don't need reenactors. You can just put extras in
right. It,
uniform.
it, it reminded me of like maybe what Alex Haley did in the mid
Yeah,
70s
Roots.
with
Yeah.
Roots. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they did, yeah.
North and South used them too in the TV series back in the mid '80s with
Hmm.
Patrick Swayze.
How long did you do that,
I
Professor?
did it from '90 until about '95, somewhere around.
Oh,
So about
wow.
5, yeah, about
Okay.
5 years. And
And
at
what,
that
what,
time, I published a Civil War comic book series that was actually distributed by Diamond. So it was in comic book stores. It was
okay.
black and white. It was indie, but it was right when Image launched. It was '92. So I was
Yeah.
kind of right on the cusp of when comics were selling. I mean, you
And
could
how did that
anything.
do for
It
you?
did well. I mean, I think I had close to 5,000 subscribers. They were mostly Civil War buffs. They were not comic readers. They were
Right,
Civil
right.
War. It
Yeah.
it sort of played to that group better. It sold to comic stores, but it never really took off in the comic
Right.
book market. But the
What was
Civil
the
War buffs
title?
loved it.
Can
It
you
was called
remember?
Southern Blood, and it was
Southern
like,
Blood. Okay.
and
Well, I'll look for that.
it was, God, good luck.
Hey, I always go to Mile High Comics. They've got the most
the,
obscure comics. They buy
yeah,
whole collections.
the
I'll
the
get
art
yours.
the art and the writing are very very naive and crude. I mean, I was only
That's
17,
what I
18.
love,
It's
Professor. Out of
it's
you,
laughable now.
the key issues and the
Yeah.
mainstream, it's wild. It's like the stuff that I really love is the independent stuff because I don't go in with preconceptions. It inspires me. I say at least they got their comic out. Some people are very critical and say I want just good comics. I don't care if they're bad. I don't know what it is, Professor, but and are you a professor indeed?
Yes, I am.
You
I
are.
teach. Yeah, I
Okay.
teach illustration and animation at
Awesome.
Oh,
Florida School of the Arts. It's a arts college here in
And you have
Florida.
an arcade bathroom behind you.
Yeah.
Does it take tokens?
Yeah, right. I wish. No, so yeah, it's not just a moniker. I am a college professor.
Oh,
But yeah,
awesome.
comics were always my thing. History was my thing. I did another book called Claiborne back in 2008. It was a graphic novel about
Oh,
the Irish Confederate general.
yeah. A
Yeah.
claiborne is a sword, is it not? A Scottish type,
Oh
or
no, you're
am I
thinking of Claymore.
Claymore? Okay.
Yeah, no,
It,
Claiborne was a
well, is there any
Irish
difference in
general.
between a claymore and then like a mortar? Boom.
No, well, they call now they call claymores the like in Vietnam
Uh huh.
the ones
the
you
mine.
set in the ground. Yeah, they're like a mine, and they shoot little
Oh,
tiny
yeah, yeah.
balls
Shrapnel or
out.
something.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a shotgun blast.
Uh
They
huh.
call those claymores now, but that claymore obviously was originally was the Scottish
And the only
sword.
reason I know that is Star Trek, the original series.
Yeah,
Scotty, the engineer, had
right.
one.
Yeah, that's right. He did.
I go
But
way back, Professor, way back. I'm,
yeah.
I'm 57. Shadowhawk almost had me convinced the other day by the math that I was 58. I was like, I'm 58.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
Give
man,
him a
we're
good
all getting
scare.
up there. Yeah, it's
yeah.
but
What
yeah, I
was
grew
your
up on
jam
comics.
growing up? Is Saturday morning cartoons? What was your jam? What did
Uh,
you like, or
I
did you
love
watch
Dungeons and
cartoons, or did?
Dragons. I liked
Huh?
fantasy. I love Dungeons and Dragons, that
Yeah,
cartoon. I used to
yeah.
like He-Man, the whole Filmation series. I used to like Fat Albert.
Wasn't it
um,
Dragon's Lair was on cartoons or
well,
something?
that Dragon Slayer was a video game, but
Yeah, it was a
yeah,
video game, but they had a cartoon
they
too.
did. And you kind of like would pick the ending. It was, I don't think
Yeah,
it did too well.
yeah.
The game did, but the cartoon didn't.
Well,
But
the animation reminded me of like 101 Dalmatians a little bit.
yeah, I
The
can see
the
that.
just the way they animated him
Mhm.
and his look and
Don Bluth, yeah, 'cause,
yeah,
well,
Don Bluth.
he worked at Disney, so he he would have gotten some of that
He would have gotten
about
some
that
of
time,
that.
the
Yeah.
70s and 80s, that style.
Uh,
So that's probably where that came from. Yeah.
we have Cross Comics in the house. How are you?
What's up,
I
Cross
guess I don't
Comics?
know if notifications went out. They know when we have somebody of renowned on here. They're
I don't know
not
if
too
I'm.
active
I don't know if
usually
I'm
in the chat.
renowned, but just a little lucky,
Yeah,
right place at the right time, I
yeah,
guess.
Well, I'm a big fan, Professor. I have been since you launched. So
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. I
yeah.
mean,
I knew it was like 6 issues, but it was going to be like a uh, well, just tell us about it. Like a slow roll, not really as fast as you can do it, but I mean, it's like a subscription service. What
yeah.
I have no idea.
Originally, I was going to ship them all together, and the problem
Okay.
was I started the campaign in the excitement of the campaign having
Hmm.
such success. I kept adding things. I kept getting ideas. I was like, you know
Yeah.
what? There needs to be a
Yeah.
handbook where they can like figure all this stuff out. And I need to do an issue 0 that'll help get some interest and boost some excitement. So I just kept adding things,
A journal.
yeah, the Diane's War Diary and all that. So, and what happens is when you add stuff, obviously that's more work.
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
the one doing the so, and I knew that. I was aware of the fact that I was putting more work on myself. But you also realize, each time you add something, it's going to slow down the rollout. So then I started to realize, well, you know what? This thing's making so much money. I can take $3,000 and do an extra shipment, or $5,000 and do 2 extra shipments. I'll go ahead and do that, 2 extra fulfillments.
Yeah.
And so even though the backers only paid for $10 flat fee for fulfillment, I figured, well, I'll roll it out, at least get something in their hands, so they're not sitting here waiting for 2 years and they've gotten nothing, which
Right.
is never a good thing. I mean, people get really upset when that happens because they're just like, am I ever going to get my book? Of course, the downside is when I send them out this far apart, people kind of forget what they read. And I've had people say, I've got to go back and read issues 1 through 3 because issue 4, I wanted to be fresh when I read issue 4. And I was like,
Right.
well, I recap that stuff in the first page, on the inside
Yeah.
page. But sometimes people are just like, yeah, but I still need to go back and read it. I just don't remember what happened. So I
Well,
understand that.
you have I mean, are you kind of writing it as you go, or do you have an overall arc in mind loosely, or do you storyboard? How do you?
Both. I do have an overall story or arc in mind, and yes, issue 5 and 6 are written now. But when I launched it, 4, 5, and 6 had not been written. I just had outlines. 1, 2, and 3 had been written, and I was almost done with 3, or finishing up 3. Of course, I also added 20 more pages because of stretch goals, so that bumped it up as well. That's like a whole nother book.
Yeah.
yeah,
So that's what's slowing it down as well. But no, the reason why I am writing it as I go and I have an overall arc is because I was able to get feedback and see what
Yeah.
people liked
Right.
or didn't like in
And
issues
you have
1
more
through
time
3.
to think it over,
Yeah.
make it better,
Yeah,
make
definitely.
connections, all kinds of stuff.
And which
I think
characters
one of the
people like.
mistakes. Yeah, I think one of the mistakes that a lot of people in their rush, when they see Ethan or someone out there in the community, artists that perhaps they knew over at DC, some of the larger professionals that have worked in comics that are on YouTube now and are more accessible, and they're like, hey, I could do that, right? One of the mistakes is they rush their project to get it out there. And I know that I had a 29-page story when I launched. Just it was going to be complete by the end of the campaign. All that was needed to be done was lettering, and that was already begun. So, but still, there were backup stories that needed to be done, and I wasn't ready. And the year that it's taken me to actually get it published in people's hands, and I'm not only working on the preview that just went out, but the next project, the first issue. And so, and I already have completed stories for it and from last year
I heard the name.
that just haven't been published yet. It really helps to get ahead on
Yeah,
things.
definitely.
And
Yeah.
you're doing a monumental thing almost in a different way that I am. I have a million different characters. Shadow can tell you I've got 1,000 different characters, and I'm trying to, like, much like the Marvel or DC universe, have a all interconnected universe. And so, but and one way I'm introducing a lot of these characters are in short stories. I'm really finding the short story form to be very enjoyable because I'm fairly new to writing. In like maybe 2017, I began writing
Hmm.
and said I'm a pretty darn good writer, probably more than the artist. So I kind of ran with that. So,
So
but
like
I
you're thinking
just
like
think
an
I said all that to say that I think you give one of the most precious things you can do is give, especially if you're a writer, is give yourself time to really think it through and do it the way you want to do it.
yeah, and I mean it sounds like you're doing like an anthology. You said
Yeah.
short stories. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so like, is it horror or fantasy or what?
It is hero and horror
Gotcha.
right now, but I'm laying the foundation and the groundwork to do any type of story I want. You
That's
know,
cool. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
someone dealing with dinosaurs to uh, medieval to whatever. You
Are
know,
you are you hiring an artist, or are you the artist and writer?
well, I do draw and I do some. I do some. I had a couple pieces in the ash can. I've been working on bookmarks recently.
Cool.
Uh, that went out in the campaign that I did. I have a neighbor that did. Here, won't you get out? I have a neighbor that did the Devil Flyer story that was 29 pages, and then the rest I've kind of solicited out to other artists. Uh, so I'll help myself as much as I can by doing some artwork. But yeah, I'm pretty much giving that out and just writing all the stories myself. And
Yeah, I prefer to do the work myself if I can.
well,
I
yeah,
hired an artist for issue 0, but that was just simply because I just didn't have the time. I was like, this is not
yeah,
going to get done if I have to do this, and I was like,
yeah.
we need to be working on 2 books simultaneously. I need to be finishing up 4 while you're doing 0,
Well,
so that's
let
kind
us
of how I
take
did
a
it.
look at your trailer now. It's going to be choppy on my internet. We call it choppy ass theater, but around here. But so I apologize ahead of time for that. I need to work that bug out. But let's bring up your trailer, and I want to show some of the artwork, and you can tell us what's your artwork and not, and what is not your artwork on this.
Well, everything
So
on the everything in
let's
the
look at
campaign
some.
and trailer is my artwork. So
Okay, so
yeah,
here is your artwork.
yeah,
And
yeah. It's all.
what is your graphics background? I mean, how did are you?
I have a master's in illustration because
Okay.
obviously to be a teacher or professor you have to have a master's degree.
Uh-huh.
But I've just been drawing ever since I was a kid. Obviously doing the comics, animation. I did a lot of oil painting, digital
Uh-huh.
painting. I don't do the colors.
Do you do your colors, your
No.
digital? Do you work digitally or?
Yes, I do. I draw. I pencil and ink digitally. The colors are not done by me. The only
Uh-huh.
thing that's not mine right there is the eagle. That's Michael Golden.
Michael
Um,
Golden. How did you
yeah.
score that, Professor?
Michael Golden. He's a workhorse. You
Yeah.
contact him and pay him his rate. He'll work.
Right.
But I grew up loving his work on the Nom. I used to love the
Uh-huh.
Nom and his GI Joe covers. Now that picture of Diani on the right there, that's a digital painting that I did. So that one's actually painted. So I did do the colors on that one.
Here on the perks.
Yeah, on the perks. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh,
But
cool.
so I do paint. I have an understanding color. I just when you're doing all this, it's
Right.
always best usually to hire a colorist. That's such a
Oh, and
specialized
he's a
field.
great colorist. He
Yeah,
complements your work just great.
yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where you see the history and the monsters coming. This is the first time I've merged the two. I've always only done historical projects, but I grew
Uh-huh.
up loving fantasy, so I was like, well,
Right.
why not take Last of the Mohicans and
Combine the two.
yeah, mix it up with some werewolves and let's see what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, well,
Now,
mashup.
are you in comic shops? I see you have a.
Yes. Yes, Diamond accepted it for distribution
Okay.
back in October, and
Oh, wow.
issue 4 is shipping this month, and it'll be in stores next month. And so they've got everything up to issue 4,
Okay.
and
All right.
obviously the backers are going to get 5 and 6 before the stores do. So I'll be
Yeah.
rolling those out after the backers get 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Very.
I like this. I guess this is the handbook, right? You
Yeah,
have
yeah.
parchment look to it, and of
Adding some
course, I
mythology
know
in there.
Shadowhawk is very likes werewolves, and this is
Oh yeah.
like him howling there, and just I like the demographic of uh, the man standing there, but the huge beast outline behind him,
Yeah, that's how
uh,
much bigger they get.
showing you the size. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they're all. I mean, if they're all that size, which of course the bear is going to have more mass than the
Yeah, he's
wolf,
bigger.
even thicker. Yeah,
The gator's a little shorter. Depending on the animal, obviously. I
right.
mean, I kind of, it's kind of
I've got to
relative to the
admit,
animal.
I like how you draw the gator. I'm not quite. Probably the closest was Amazing Spider-Man, the lizard,
Yeah, yeah. It's kind
the
of like a
way Dick.
lizard. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've got to admit, he's probably my favorite. But
A
they're
lot of people
great.
say that.
Huh?
I say a lot of people say that. A lot of people
Yeah,
love the gator.
yeah. They're well. It's a great ensemble, and they're. We were debating the other day. The leopard is a man. They're all men, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's no women.
Transform men.
The
Okay.
only woman is Diane, and her totem is a deer,
Okay. Right here.
which you see
Yeah.
her. Yeah, you see her there.
Uh-huh.
But she doesn't usually fight. She usually gives,
No.
assembles the team, and then
Yeah.
sort of leads things. But
The
she's not
splinter of the group.
exactly.
Yeah.
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 But I'm almost done with
She
the War Diary. It's going to print next month. It's going to be
awesome.
hardback,
Okay.
and it's full of pinups of her in different time periods, and it's got her diary entries. So you get a lot of insight into her life and what she's seen, and,
Thinking process.
yeah, and how she relates to everything and the
Now, what
world.
time period is this set in, Professor? What year?
That's 1756. It's the French and Indian War, or
Right.
what's known as the 7 Years' War in Europe. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that before we watch the trailer?
Yeah, well, I mean, before the American
Just
Revolution,
historically,
yeah,
you know?
France and Britain were fighting over possession of the continent, and
Mhm.
the British were trying to colonize, and the French were colonizing as well, but not in the same way. They were more trading with the natives and had more of a trade relationship.
Uh-huh.
They were fur trappers. They were out in
And
the
up
village.
into Lower Canada as well, right?
Yeah, well, that's why so much of Canada is French.
Didn't some of the fighting even take place in Canada?
Yes, yeah, New England area down to like the northern part of the Smoky Mountains and up
Mhm.
to lower Canada. Yeah.
Now, was there a boundary at that time? There was, wasn't there?
Well,
There was.
no. There was this. There were no.
It was just Western Hemisphere, or
Yeah, I
all.
mean there were.
Nothing had been drawn out.
There were
Okay.
some colonies, obviously, or there's some settlements. I mean, obviously Jamestown, and there were colonials. There were colonies.
Would you say the tomahawk was the depictions of that war? The tomahawk made it a bloody war.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, I mean, there were lots of scalpings going on.
yeah,
Both sides, not just natives. The French and British would scalp too. It
yeah,
was a way of showing how many, enemies
right.
you had defeated.
Trophy, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there were no rules, and that's the thing. I mean, it was
It was guerrilla
sheer
warfare,
brutality.
was it not?
Yeah, it was
It was
ugly.
anarchy.
Yeah, it was nasty.
You come
It's-
upon your enemy, you engage them.
Yeah. I mean, and that's where
Yeah.
Washington kind of came to fame. George
Yeah.
Washington was during that war.
And didn't France sort of solicit more the aggressive tribes on their
Yeah,
side?
well, yeah, because I mean, most of the tribes, I mean, they split. Like the Mohawk went, a lot of them went with the British. Huron, a lot of them went with the French, and you had lots of tribes. It was whatever was best for their situation or what they felt was best. But the French were a little less heavy-handed and kind of got along with the natives better than the French or than the British did. The British were. They're known for their, especially back in the colonial times, the British are known to be very heavy-handed. I mean, towards everybody, Irish, Scottish, you name it. So that didn't sit too well with a lot of the tribes. It just depended. But obviously the colonials were siding with the British for the most part because the British were trying to protect their settlements. And so, I mean, that's basically...
And they still, excuse me, swore allegiance to the king.
Right. Right. And I mean, you're going to go with what's your best interest. And at that time, the British were,
Hmm.
at least attempting to protect the settlements. And of course, the revolution's only, 20 years later. So the colonials didn't always get along with their British masters,
Yeah.
and that led to resentments later and the revolution and all that other stuff. But what's interesting is in issue 3, that fort that gets burned down, I call it Fort Rolfe, named after the commander. It's actually the same location where Fort Necessity was, because Fort Necessity is the fort that Washington had to surrender to the French, and they
Right.
burned it down. They destroyed it.
Uh-huh.
Well, I put Fort Rolfe on the site of where Fort Necessity had been burned down. So it's the same location. It gets burned down again. So I was like, that's a way to get around history without changing anything. It's on the
Yeah.
same
Yeah, that's
spot.
kinda neat.
The fort wasn't there.
Yeah.
It's like it got brushed under the rug. No one talks about it because all those guys got killed. So I'm trying to like weave the monsters into it without changing history, if you know what I mean. Like
Right.
it falls
Yeah.
into legend, kind of like Bigfoot. Where
Uh-huh.
it's like, well, we saw something, and you're like, oh, you guys were, those were Indians in costume, in animal skins or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
That wasn't really a
They're just
werewolf.
trying to scare you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting to try to weave that in so that history sort of follows its normal course as I go forward with Diane throughout. It doesn't really. She helps things at a very local, small level, but it doesn't impact the overall picture. There's
Right.
still a World War II, there's still a Civil War, there's still the Wild West. All that stuff still comes, but there's little stories in between where she's involved doing her thing, so to speak. So.
Why 6 issues?
Well, originally it was going to be 10, and that was
Oh.
just too much. It was too ambitious.
Yeah.
So then I shrunk it down to 8, and then I was like, well, I really want this to be a $25 perk price,
Right.
and I can't deliver 8 comics for 25. So I cut it down to 6, and then took Diane's backstory and put it in 0. So it was a way to get around it, to kind of compress it.
Uh-huh.
And if you'll notice, the first 2 issues, they kind of go a little slower, and then you get to issue 3 and 4, and it starts picking up. And then 5 and 6, it's like I cram everything in there. So I've had to like sort of pick up the pace at the ending, which I think works because that's what a movie or a story or a comic should do. Is it should start to accelerate and things
Right.
the stakes get higher and the pace picks up.
Mhm.
But if you read the first 2 issues, you can kind of tell. You might be able to tell the pacing is set for a longer series because I'm sort
Do
of
you
taking my
you
time.
probably have like sub stories, right? I mean, underlying.
Yeah. Well, there's a subplot with the colonel's lieutenant colonel's wife. She's having an affair with the guy that's the gator.
Uh-oh. Wow.
Yeah, he's like a scoundrel kind of
Oh,
British.
my favorite character.
He's a British sort of like not turncoat, but he's just
Yeah.
he's a drunkard and sort of a braggart and a womanizer and all that kind of stuff. Party man, and she's in love with him, and he's having an affair with her. So there's that subplot. Of course, there's a subplot between Diane and James, the
Now
werewolf
they get
guy.
changed into the Beast in like the first issue, don't they?
No one, and that was one of the things. I had some people. They're like, where are the wolves? Where are the werewolves? Where are the werewolves?
Right.
I'm like, guys, this wasn't a lot of people. This is a few. I was like, you
Right,
gotta let the
right.
story. Let's give it time. Let the story
Yeah.
develop. We
You
don't
have to
need
set a good foundation.
Yeah, you gotta let the thing happen, and then by issue 2, you see the wolf. In issue 3, you see the wolf. So by issue 3, you still haven't seen anything but the werewolf. The rest of the team's not even there. Then when you get to issue 4, you see everybody but the bear, and that's a subplot as well. Why don't we see the bear? Well, the character reveals that why he's not the bear in issue 4. Then by the time we get to 5, I still don't think you see the bear. I don't know. I can't. And then 6, the whole thing just But 6 is 48 pages.
Well, you almost had me sold till you slow rolled it.
Yeah, but when he rolls out,
Yeah.
it's kind of like the movie Alien, or even Aliens. I mean, the first
Uh-huh.
hour of the movie, you do not see an alien
Yeah.
or aliens. And in
Well, you
Aliens, you
saw
don't. Need
so many interesting things, especially then the ship and the
Right.
yeah. I mean
Build.
the dynamic between the different characters are living together in an enclosed place. for a long time, and
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. It's interesting all in itself.
But when it rolls out, then all of a sudden, like,
Yeah.
there's an
Well, I
impact
mean, it's
there.
the buildup of King Kong, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
It took a while for you to meet Kong.
he's the
You're
Hulk of the
you're
team.
you're 45 minutes in, but you're ever climbing,
Right.
pacing, going,
Yeah.
what is this thing on Skull Island that they talk about?
Yeah.
It's dropping hints. It's, your anticipations. And then when he does roll out, it just like, whoa.
Yeah, you got to realize a grizzly bear is one of the most powerful land animals. I mean, aside from like an
Yeah.
African elephant or something, but
Oh,
pound for pound,
I was
they're
astonished on, I think it was Twitter or maybe YouTube, where I saw one just peeling back the metal top to a dumpster.
yeah, they're incredibly strong.
Yeah.
Probably a grizzly bear and a gorilla, pound for pound, are the two of the strongest animals. As far as like mammals go.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's gonna be a force to reckon with. So I had to save him, and there's a reason. There's a really good reason why he doesn't want. He's choosing not to do this, and I'm not gonna spoil too much, but if you haven't read it, but no, it's you try to give characters motivations. Everyone's not just gonna go along with something. They gotta have reasons why they're doing it. So obviously the father's trying to get his daughter back. That's his
Now,
motivation.
when did the shadow banning come in, and how bad did it hurt? You think?
Well,
I think it
yeah,
hurts every campaign.
what happened was there was a lot of buzz about people saying how you need to put sample pages. I mean, look, my campaign had already hit $74,000. It wasn't like I was hurting, but I was like,
Yeah.
I'll put some sample pages on there, and just honestly not thinking. I put some pages from the battle scene, and there
Yeah.
was a really gory shot with like a
Right.
spike going through a guy's head. And
Oh,
that's all it took. It was gone. But
yeah.
the problem with Indiegogo is they don't give you any recourse.
Right.
They don't respond. They don't communicate. You can take it off. I took it off. Doesn't matter. They don't put it back. They don't unshadow ban it. They just ignore it. They just put you in the corner and never talk to you again. That's
Right.
literally how they work. So,
Right.
so what I did was, it's like, fine, you're going to hide my campaign. I'll start a second chance campaign, call it War Party, and I'll put a link in the campaign body of the campaign that says, if you want issue 6, go 1 through 6, go here, and it'll take you to my hidden campaign, and that's what I did. So, and it's kept it alive, because now if you search War Party, you'll see the second chance
And you
campaign.
see the ultimate tally there.
Yeah, but it's like only $1,300, because it's it's just
Oh,
there.
well, the one I have brought up says the 70.
That's the shadow banned one. If you have the link, you can get there. But if you type War Party in Indiegogo, this does not come up. This page will not come up.
Yeah, but now I could back it on this
Yes,
campaign.
you can still back it. Yeah, you can
Either
still back
one,
it.
right? The second chance or this.
Correct. But the
Okay,
second
I think
chance,
we have had your second chance up, and
yeah, the second chance has a link to this, so that's how I was able to get around
okay,
their
very smart. You're
trickery.
smarter than I am. Let's watch the trailer real quick. Get
Sure.
this out of the way. Not that I'm trying to, because it is some good stuff, but I want to give people that, if you haven't seen War Party and backed War Party, I really highly recommend this just on art alone. I don't really care if you can tell a story. The art is wonderful, but
Thanks.
I know you have a good story. I'm glad that it's a historical thing. You're showing content that frankly isn't addressed, and you've seen in comics very often. So I'm very pleased with the look of it. Uh-oh.
Everything changed when war reached the Americas. Caught between the French and the British, my family paid the price. Only my darling Sarah survived. They took her away. We couldn't save them, but we will save her. 5 men against thousands, how can it be done? We are not merely men. War has brought out the beast in us all. And we will have our vengeance, for we are
The War Party.
just think of it as a slideshow, a ViewMaster slideshow.
Uh-oh, you lost Shadowhawk.
Yeah, his device is that it goes off of his phone. He'll be back probably. Um, he bounces himself quite often. Um, yeah, there he is. So I guess shamanism comes into this, Professor.
Sorry, good.
Yes, and issue 0 gives you a lot of backstory as far as where she got the power from and who her enemies are, who don't even make an appearance in this series. They're coming in future books. They're sort of her enemies throughout time, so they're much bigger adversary than what we're dealing with in this book. Right now, the adversaries are the French and the British, and this warrior named Rotag, and what they're trying to do by kidnapping this little girl. They're like the antagonists in this series, but there's a much bigger antagonist that Diane has to deal with that are much more powerful than she is, and that's what I'm going to sort of make my through line throughout history. She's kind of like, remember the show Quantum Leap with Scott Bakula?
Go back in the refrigerator.
Yeah, she's like the Scott Bakula. You know, she's bouncing around from time to time, you know, or period to period, and helping people with these different problems or these different things that they need help with, whether it's a war or rescuing a child or whatever. And that's just kind of how I see her throughout the different stories.
Well, I have another question, but Shadowhawk, you've read the issues you have. Have you not?
Yeah, 1 through 4 so far, I believe.
Yeah. What do you think?
I love it, man. Can't wait for the rest of the story.
Didn't you get issue 0 as well?
I believe issue 0 may have come in on this last shipment. I'd have to double check.
Okay, I think.
Yeah, it went out with 4, so yeah.
It went out with 4. Okay, yeah.
So if you ordered it, you should have it.
Came out.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the black and white one.
Now, was that a surprise to people? Like, oh, I got an extra. No, they knew it was coming.
They paid for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
and I believe I'm pretty sure I got in on the Dianese War Diary too, but
yeah, that's coming next.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, that's a double.
You do like a subscription, right? Something.
Well, no, what I do is I do add-ons. So like when someone backs the series, I'll send them an email and it'll have the links. I did a whole like PDF catalog that has the hyperlinks to all the add-ons. So they can scroll through the PDF catalog and pick what add-ons they want, and it'll take them directly to the links in Indiegogo, and they just click on it. And a lot of times I just leave the shipping off or reduce it because I package these things together and ship them out together. So that's
how long did it take you to get your campaign up?
Well, it's
how long did you work on it?
Well, that's the thing. See, it wasn't this complex when I started. It was just issues 1 through 6. That was it. Yeah. But over the course of the first year,
adding
I kept adding stuff. Yeah, I did the figures and I did the.
Well, you were doing gangbusters, weren't you? I mean.
Well, it's one of the reasons why it's done so well. I mean, the reason I've had people say this is your first comics campaign,
right?
And you've hit $77,000. How's that?
Yeah, I'd like to see you get over 100, and I know you would too. But
now that I'm shadow banned, it's very hard because it just.
Well, we've been showing your trailer almost every day.
Yeah,
I like to show a lot of shadow banned projects, and yours is one we've shown quite often.
Well, plus a lot of people have heard of it, so.
Yeah.
The problem is, at some point, you kind of hit critical mass where you've gotten all the people that are interested that have heard of you.
Yeah.
So unless you reach another group of people that haven't even heard of it, the people that haven't bought it by now either aren't going to buy it because it's just not their thing, they're not into it, or I have had some people say, you know what, I want to wait till you bundle this in a prestige format in your next campaign, I'll buy it because they just don't want to buy floppies.
Well, you get one more backer, and that'll be me. if it's still up when I in about a month.
And I will do that. I'm going to compile.
I'll just buy it again, Justin. When you put it all
and I think your price point helped it out. I think it was lower, but than some I mean. I don't know if it was lower, right? What was the price?
It's lower. I mean, you think about it. You're getting 160 pages of art story for $25.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I mean, wow. Okay.
You're paying $4 an issue, and some issues are 32 pages long. So I didn't want to charge more than what I was charging in the stores. So you're not paying any more than what
Is there
someone
any
pays in the
difference
store.
that from the campaign books to the ones you might find out in the stores?
Yeah, well, issue 1 had a different cover in the
Okay.
store, and I took some of the handbook and stuffed it in the back of issue 1 for the
Mm.
retail.
Oh.
The rest of them, they may have some less ads here or there, but they're pretty much the same covers,
Yeah.
just a different UPC symbol on the
Besides
front.
Diamond, have you done any other advertising? I advertised mine last year before I launched it with Alterna Comics.
Yeah, well, this is the one I did that when I rolled it out, and it was very well received. Was in this previews catalog.
All right, wait a minute. Show us that cover.
There's the previews catalog. This was back in October.
Okay, I'll be looking for that.
They gave me they gave me the inside front cover,
Nice.
and it was actually a fold out ad because Power Rangers had done a big
Wow.
fold out, so it was it was quite a high profile ad.
Yeah.
And it
Great.
got a lot of attention, and I know enough about this business, especially with retailers, that you got to come out of the gate and say, "Hey, I'm here." If you just rely on that little listing in the book,
Yeah.
nobody sees it. Like
Right.
nobody knows. So
Right.
even if retailers, the ones that still may not have ordered from that ad, they know about it. Like they've seen
Yeah.
it. They know they've heard of War Party. And I'll
They
go
probably had
online
to-
and do searches, and like Golden Apple carries it, Midtown Comics in Manhattan carries it. All the big stores that that have been around forever, they all have it on their website. So it's really spread out. And the thing about retail is you have to sell it at 40% the cover price. So you don't make a lot of money off the books per book unless
Right.
you do really high volume.
But it's exposure,
Exactly. I see
and
it
it's a
as,
different market.
right. And if it breaks even,
Mhm.
which it looks like it's going to in the retail, that's advertising. I mean, you're reaching people you would never reach on Indiegogo. They're still buying comics in stores. They're not necessarily buying them online. And that's a new reader, that's a new customer who then may back your next campaign. So to me, it makes perfect sense to do it if you can afford to do it. Obviously, if my campaign hadn't have done as well as it had, I wouldn't have done this. But because once I passed 50 grand, I was like, I'm going to get this in comic book stores. I've got enough money that I can risk,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
doing another print run and getting them out there.
Would you say that's probably the cutoff right there, about 50,000?
Well, it depends on what you're doing. It depends on what you're doing. I mean, there are books
Yeah.
out there that can make a profit at 20,000. If they're like a 48-page graphic novel, you could probably, and you're drawing it yourself, you're not paying an artist, you could probably make a profit at 20,000.
Yeah.
But for a project like this, with the amount of work involved in printing, you always find a new way to spend money. You know what I mean? Like you're like, what else can I do?
Well, I have to ask
you
you, do you have tenure?
Getting close.
Getting close? Okay.
Yeah.
How long have you taught?
Well, I've been an adjunct since going on 7 years, but I've only been full time about 4.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it's
Overall, it's been pretty enjoyable.
it's great. Yeah, because schools encourage, especially art schools, they want you producing art outside of the school. So if you're a photographer, you better be taking pictures, and selling them. If you're an animator, you better be making animated shorts. Or if you're an illustrator, you can't just be a theory teacher and telling kids how to do something and you're not even doing it yourself.
Yeah.
So it's not a conflict of interest, and that's what makes it work. They encourage.
What's your teaching schedule like? I mean, how many hours would you say a week takes out of
Yeah,
your...
I mean, you have to put in 40 between your office hours, your teaching, and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it's the flexibility of it is what's good, because
You probably work on your comic right there in your office.
well, yeah, you can, yeah. And the thing is, that's considered industry work, production work, so that does count towards your work hours, and they like to see that. Like the last show we did, faculty show, I mean, War Party I had some of the stuff hanging up, and I had my film Dogtown, the trailer for it running.
Who did your
animated
action
trailer.
figure, Professor?
She was what I found. I found a mass-produced, fully articulated figure,
Hey, Tree, Lorenzo.
and they come. They're basically nude, and they come in different ethnicities and everything, hair colors, and all that stuff. And you pick the one. I found one that I felt looked the most like
Kind of customized
Diana.
it.
Yes, and then
Yeah.
I hand painted each one, had all the costume pieces made. There's
Uh-huh.
like real feathers, and the axe
Right.
is real steel, the
Yeah.
tomahawk. And so it was customizing, basically customizing an action figure. So, and that way I could do only 10 of them, and you know, you're not having to mass produce.
Well, there was
Yeah.
one that there was a Warpath action figure.
Yeah,
that
she was
there was
this.
only one.
There was only one,
of
yeah.
it.
And one of the people that bought one of the 10 bought that one as well.
Yeah.
It's actually my
Nice.
biggest backer. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Those are
Have a-
beautiful figures.
Well,
though.
congratulations, Shadowhawk.
Yeah. Wasn't me, bro. I wish it
Oh,
was.
okay.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
guy, man, he actually lives in the UK, and
I don't know if you know,
Nice.
I backed, I'm probably around 50 campaigns, maybe more.
Okay.
I haven't really, I have to contact them. They're not giving me my whole history, but I started in 2020, but Shadowhawk started before me, and he's backed a lot harder than I have. What, about 350 campaigns, Shadowhawk?
Last count was 361.
oh gosh,
Oh,
dude.
yeah.
So,
And he
so,
backs quite heavily too.
so
in
you
most,
go back to
in
the
most
Jawbreakers days, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2018 when
Yeah.
I found Ethan.
Yeah.
That's when I
Now,
first started
that's an
watching.
interesting story as well.
That's when you
Professor.
started watching? Really? Okay.
I quit collecting comic books completely in late 1999, early 2000. I was tired of all the endless crossovers and just I started off with like 20 books on my pull list, and by the time
Wow.
we got to that point, I would have 60 or 70 a month just sitting there because of crossovers and this. I was like, you know what? No, I'm done with all this. I'm going through a divorce. I quit collecting completely for 18 years. And then I got injured back in 2018, and I was off work for a couple of months. And nothing else to do. I started cruising around the internet and ran into Ethan. I'm like, oh shit, I remember this guy.
Yep.
And I believe your campaign is probably in the first 20 or 30 that I bet.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. Thanks, man. I mean, yeah, I got in just the right time because, man, the floodgates opened the next year, 2021. It was like, and all of a sudden there was like 10 werewolf books.
Oh
I was
yeah,
like,
dude,
are you
everybody
kidding
started
me?
doing werewolves.
How did
And
the
You
how
like
did
werewolves,
20
man.
how did 2020 affect you personally? That was a big year.
Yeah, well,
I mean, I'm not just talking your campaign, but the
Yeah. Well, hey, Zayd,
COVID
what's
and
up?
all that.
Diaz brothers in the house.
Hell, cool.
Hey,
Yeah.
Bill.
Yeah, well, my son was on tour. My son's an actor, and he was on tour with Bronx Tale. And so, yeah, they had to close that tour down because of that. And
Wow.
I had just finished doing Jekyll and Hyde at a Equity Theater here in town because I act as well. And, yeah, I mean, I just threw myself completely into getting this campaign launched because I had a feeling I wanted to get it out before the election. Because I was like, and Lord knows what's going to happen economically after that. I need to get this thing out. So that's why I launched in October of 2020, near the end of the year.
Gotcha.
But it took a while. I mean, as you see.
Would you recommend that? That's around Christmas time, Thanksgiving, when people are spending money on other things besides comics.
Yeah, but they're also spending money. So
Yeah,
you
that's
said,
true too.
so I've never found that to be a bad time. The worst time of year, honestly, is after Christmas. January, February, and honestly March. These are the worst months of the year to try to sell stuff. They're just
And yet, Wreck Planet launched in March.
Well, that's Ethan, though. I mean,
That's Ethan, though.
Yeah, I mean, if
he
you
took
have
off like a rocket.
Right. If you have an audience base that's already ready, they'll buy it. The time of year is irrelevant. But I'm just saying, generally, when you're just trying to reach a marketplace, those are the worst months. It starts picking up in April, and then by May, people are, it's when the movies are coming out, the big films, and like people are ready to spend money and kind of recovered from Christmas. But yeah, it's. I mean, in demand saved me on this thing. This is why Kickstarter. I'll never use Kickstarter probably because the in demand function. I mean, I made over 60 grand in demand.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no. Could you imagine if I'd closed this campaign when the campaign?
Yeah, I mean, that was one thing that really blew me away. Looking at this, you had $14,211 with 333 backers when it ended on December 3rd of 2020, and now you have, I guess we can add 13,000 to this total, 77, almost 78,000 with 2,057 backers. I
Well, and
mean,
that's another thing. 2,000 backers.
over
Yeah, that's
2,000,
awesome, bro.
That's a
right?
lot. Yeah,
That's
I know
amazing.
that's a lot, but it's also a
Not
lot
too many
because
people hit those kind of numbers.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's the price point though. I mean, keep in mind if I
That's
was
true too. Yeah, it's
yeah,
good price.
if you average my backer count versus how much I've raised, it comes out in the 30s. Most campaigns, it's in the 50s or 60s. It's almost twice. So
Well, I would
just
say,
keep that in mind.
those type of numbers get me Ethan's autograph, but I already have Ethan's. I need to get yours.
Well, yeah, you order the books, you get it. I mean, it comes with it.
There you go.
I mean, I sign every one of them. So
Oh, cool.
not the retailers; they don't get the retail stores don't get them signed. Only the
Yeah.
backers. So there's
Yeah.
something to be said for that. But yeah, I got a little sidetracked these last few months. I did a job for John Malin for Godlike.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, he hired me to do
Yeah.
his supplemental book, which was like 32 pages of art written by Mark Polton, and
Mhm.
did that. So that put me a little more behind, but it was one of those things. I wasn't going to turn down John Malin.
Oh, right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I
I
just-
think,
yeah. So and it exposes me to his audience, which is good. That'll help War Party as well because some of his readers will see that.
Oh yeah.
What's up, Eric?
hey, Eric,
Hey,
You know, so
have you
gotta do that.
seen Gary Shipman's Titan?
Yes,
Mouse?
I have. I haven't backed it, but I saw it. I
I
actually,
bought this copy. Now I backed his campaign, bought the catch up, and got issue 1, 2, and 3, and he signed all of them on the cover, which was really neat. I like when people sign them. But now I got this at my local comic book shop.
nice. So he's getting distribution. That's great
Cool.
because I
Right.
remember seeing his first campaign even before I launched. It was probably 2019, I think.
Uh-huh.
It might have been when he launched the first campaign with that character. So I do remember seeing that. I actually like the art. It's really
Oh, I
cool.
was blown away. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, a quote, online Indiegogo project within my local comic book store.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
And I was very glad to see that you had a barcode and
yeah.
was probably there too.
Well, I have a history with it too. Like I said, I've been doing this since I was 17, so I've had a relationship with Diamond most of my life. So
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
know what's involved. Like I
Yeah.
know how to solicit and when to advertise and sort of like, I know the
Do
risks
you
involved.
remember when it was Capital?
Well, I had Capital too, but that was a different distributor. I had
Well, I mean, Diamond bought out Capital, did they not?
um,
I think that's how it happened.
yeah, what it was well, there was Diamond, then there was Capital City, and there was Heroes World. Those were the three biggies. I was with all three back in the 90s.
Okay.
Eventually, Marvel, I think Marvel bought Diamond. I can't remember. You might be right. They might have bought Capital. Marvel bought Heroes World. That's what it was.
Well, I know when
Marvel
I
bought
had
Heroes World.
I briefly had for about 8 months. I had a comic book shop, and it was my partner, because you really can't have a comic book by yourself. It's just too much work
Right.
if you want to do it justice. I guess you could, but I was 17 and still in high school, and didn't have the capital really to do it, or the place. So we had a comic book shop there briefly, but it was the first one here in town.
Mhm.
I'm in Northeast Arkansas, and that was a great experience. And we dealt with Capital, and then after Capital there was Diamond. So I believe they bought Capital out. It was
They
just
probably
called
did.
Capital.
What happened was
Yeah.
Marvel left Diamond and thought they could distribute their own books, and they
Yeah.
bought Heroes World to exclusively distribute Marvel books. That didn't work out. They didn't know what they were doing. It went under. Then Diamond had bought Capital. You're right. And then what happened was when Heroes World went under because Diamond couldn't handle
Mhm.
distribution, Diamond went back to Marvel went back to Diamond, and that's why Diamond's the only one left.
Heroes World really sold a lot of toys.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, and then they went, like I said, they went all Marvel, but
Yeah.
and that's why today, I mean, Diamond's really the only game in town, unless I know,
And we saw
DC
how
has their
fragile
own.
they were in 2020.
yeah, yeah,
They almost collapsed there. If we
Yeah.
had, if everybody hadn't went back to work and geared up a little bit, I'm afraid Diamond would have went under or something. And
yeah.
then that actually they did lose some business. Other people started going with these alternative distributors. after
Yeah,
that.
well,
Right.
I mean, I think DC Comics dumped them, didn't they?
They did. The DC and Marvel both left.
Oh, Marvel, yeah, and Marvel.
Marvel's
Well, I
with
think Marvel had been gone already, though.
Marvel's with Penguin
Mm-hmm.
Random House,
Uh-huh.
Okay.
and DC started their own. I can't remember the name of it, but they're
Yeah,
doing
I
their own
don't.
thing. So honestly, I mean, previews are really the main thing now is Image, Dynamite, Boom. It's all the indies really
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
left.
Mhm.
Dark Horse.
Is that better for you? If
Yes,
you know, if you, yeah.
absolutely, because
Yeah,
now that
yeah.
catalog is thinner, and there's not as much competition. You got all the Marvel and DC stuff out of there,
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
and it's
Uh-huh.
just me and the other small indies, and then the big indies, if you want to call
Right.
them. I don't call really Image and Boom and Dynamite
Right.
indies anymore. They're
So
publishers.
after War Party, where do you go from there?
Well, I mean, I have so many different stories I want to tell with it.
Yeah.
I'll probably stick with it. I mean, like I said,
Does the shape shifting, does that prolong their life?
no.
It doesn't.
No.
Yeah.
As soon as you
Okay.
take the pelt off, as a matter of fact, you'll learn in issue 4 you can't keep that thing on forever. You got to take
Oh,
it
okay.
off. It
Yeah.
starts you start to lose yourself. So it's a temporary fix
Yeah.
to a
Yeah.
problem. Only she can do that, and
Well,
only
that is kind of like that is the kryptonite, right? They have to have a weakness. I mean, otherwise, I mean, if you make a character too strong, you know, I could crack the planet with one hit. Well,
right.
then
No, they can be killed. You know.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's just they're extremely powerful, and you know, you have to go through quite a involved ritual to even get that. You can't just wolf out. You know, like you got to get the pelt. It's got to be made of the animal's actual skin, so it has the animal's
Mhm.
DNA. You got to drink Diane's blood,
ah,
and yeah,
okay,
she has to give you some of her essence for it to
yeah.
Yeah.
even trigger the
Yeah.
reaction. So she's giving you a little dose of
Is
her
she a
power.
mutant? Is she a mutant?
No, she's a
No,
human
she's
being.
like a shaman. Yeah.
Yeah, she's
Is
been
it magic?
yes, she's been
Yeah.
endowed with ancient magic
Okay,
that
all right.
you
The,
know
the
is
way I described it to
interdimensional.
Rex the other
Follow
day
the
was
science, Professor.
she's the hottie that hands out the superpowers.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
she's the more I write her, the more I just like I love like exploring like her personality and how she interacts with people and her
yeah.
take on the world. It's especially with this war diary. It's gonna be interesting to put myself in her mindset and be
How
like,
do you think
you know,
success? Now you've talked about some of this before, but success has changed your campaign. I mean, obviously you offered more, but let's say you stayed at about 20,000.
I would have been in trouble. You know?
Really,
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
Yeah, by that point he'd added too many things.
yeah.
yeah. Because of how many books and your
Yeah, and
yeah.
just I think that what you can tell when
Did
something's
you
on a
undersell it?
trajectory.
Is that it? You undersold it from the very beginning?
No, it's just I was testing the waters. My goal was if I could just hit 30,000. I remember because I'd been following Clint Stoker for a while, and I remember when he rolled out his first Downcast, and he
Uh,
passed 30,000. That was a big deal. People were like, "Wow, his first campaign, he passed 30 grand." I was like, "That's impressive." And so
yeah.
that was my goal. I was like, if I could just beat Downcast 1, then I'll consider this a
I think you
success,
did.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Well,
blew
now
it out of the water.
well, now I had my eyes set on 6 figures, and then that's
Yeah.
when the shadow ban happened. I was like, oh, I was so close. It was like running to the finish line and you trip, you know. But I'm gonna find a way to get there.
How
I have
often
some
did you
tactics.
add things? Was it you were seeing the campaign maybe slow up a little bit, so then you would,
Yes, that's
and then
exactly
how
what
did you
happened.
get the word out that you're keeping this very active for a while?
My email list. See, the thing
Yeah.
I realized was the best people to market to are the people who've already bought something.
Yeah,
In other words, I spent less time trying to get new backers and more time trying to get my backers to back more things.
right.
Because I said, look, they already like it. They've already told me they like it because they gave me money and they believe in
Right.
the project. So why don't I give them more stuff and see what happens? So that's how that happened. And then by osmosis, more people came to the table because they start seeing your numbers rise and they're like, this book's hot. This book's taking off. I
Right.
want a part of this. And then it snowballs. So that's kind of how that all happened. It was very organic and it wasn't really planned that way. It just
Right.
And I'll
happened.
tell you what, Justin, one of the things you do very well is keep your backers not only up to date, but updated, where you're at, what's going on, when shipping's coming. And you're on it, dude.
Well, thanks,
which
man.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate you saying that. Rob Arnold used to get on to me. He's like, "You're updating too much." He's, he used
That's
to, call, he used to
there's
say
no such thing as updating too much.
he called me Professor Update. He was like, "Professor Update." All right.
Yeah.
I was like, "Rob, the numbers speak for themselves." He's like, "I know, it's ridiculous."
Only
Well,
Rob, man. Only Rob.
yeah. I mean, I guess there is consumer fatigue towards a certain point, right? I mean, I and Shadowhawk have talked about that with Ethan's campaigns. He puts out so much stuff so quickly,
Yeah.
and Shadowhawk wants to get it all. He's one of these mega. I've got to have everything because
Yeah.
he followed Cyberfrog when it was nothing, when it was
Right,
first
right.
coming out from
Oh yeah,
Ethan,
Hall of Heroes.
from Hall of Heroes from the very beginning in the
Wow.
early '90s.
That's impressive. Wow, so you're an old school.
Yeah,
Like
bro.
you're
I
an
didn't even.
original.
I missed all of Ethan's Marvel and DC work. I didn't even know he did Green Lantern and all that shit until 2018 when I started watching his show. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I did Rebirth and blah blah blah." And I, holy
So
shit.
you're an original Cyberfrog fan. That's impressive. Wow.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. I went indie like pretty much right around the time Image broke off with Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
I like I was already, getting sick of all the crossovers and the stupid multiple covers and all this
Yeah.
other shit. And
So he was around when this came out.
yeah,
Oh,
so
nice. Look at that.
so I found the Image stuff and the indie Black Dark
It's-
Horse and all that kind of stuff to be just more interesting for me my last 5 or 6 years that I was collecting. And like I said, in '99, Ethan had disappeared at that point. I didn't know he went to Marvel.
Right.
Cyberfrog was gone. Um, like I said, I was going through a divorce and shit. I was just like, you know what, it's just too much trouble. I'm just, comics they're not the same to me anymore. And yeah, 18 years I was gone.
Well, it's funny you show me that cover because you can see the influence of Todd McFarlane
Yeah.
on Ethan's
Oh, yeah.
work back then. I
Mhm.
mean, his art has changed a lot since then, but man, back then it was like you could see Todd all over his style.
And just so you know, if you ever offer in any sketch you want, dear Professor, I'm requesting Salamandro.
Oh, okay. I did do one Cyberfrog a while back.
That's his favorite character out of all the heroes. Of course, X-Men was his jam, but Salamandroid's his favorite character of all time.
Yeah, it's a great design.
So
Sucker's
he's put a
huge.
task before me to somehow beat Sal as his favorite character. So I'm trying.
You got your work cut out, right?
I've got my work cut out for me. I don't know that I can top that because there is a nostalgia, right? Did you read comics
Oh yeah.
yourself?
Yeah, I liked indies too. I used to like I said, I was big into the Nom in the '80s.
Yeah. Michael Golden, right?
Yeah, Michael Golden's great. I
Yeah.
love
Wow,
GI
Michael
Joe. I
Golden's
used to read
awesome.
GI Joe by
Uh-huh.
Larry Hama all the time. Loved that one.
Uh-huh.
Conan, Savage Sword of Conan, the black and white magazines.
Did you do
Oh, yeah.
conventions?
Not back then. I didn't. No.
Yeah.
I didn't do conventions until I did Claiborne back in
Yeah.
2008.
I was
But,
just wondering if you had previously met Michael Golden because you have a Michael Golden cover.
Well, yeah, I did meet him in 2008 when I was selling Claiborne. I gave him a copy, but he didn't remember who I was. I mean,
Right.
so like, I mean, he meets so many people. I just,
Right.
he has an agent, Renee, and she, you just contact her and say, I'm interested in Michael doing a commission, and
Uh-huh.
and they give you the rate, and you go from there.
How long was War Party up on a mail up list?
That was the thing. I had a 6-month build up on
Uh-huh.
Facebook with my Facebook people. I didn't have Twitter. I wasn't really. I was streaming
Okay.
on YouTube a little bit.
Yeah.
But
I
when
noticed 20% of my support came through Facebook.
Yeah. Well, when I launched, like I said, I hit about 800 the first day, and then it was crawling along, like maybe $100 a day or
Yeah. Yeah.
something like that, and or less than that even. And I just realized I had to get out there. You've got to get out there and stream. If I
I've
hadn't
got
gotten
to.
out there and streamed,
I think it might have been your project. Certainly one of your projects, or like this project, or something like that. That was kind of what am I thinking? Discouraging. Because I saw the quality you had, and it was limping along it.
Yeah.
And I've seen, if it wasn't yours, it was another project like it that I thought, look at this, and it's it's limping. It's
Yeah.
not for some reason. And I'm like, just you can have you could write War and Peace, and if nobody reads it,
Hmm.
nobody knows it's out there.
Well,
But I
people,
mean, and that's the thing that, Malin and Ethan have been trying to drill into people's head is, yeah, it's, great to do whatever and have a launch and have a great project. You can have the best artwork in the world, but if
Right.
people don't know you and they
right,
don't care about you,
right.
Right.
they're, how likely are they going to back?
Yeah, that's
So,
the truth. And it wasn't until I started going on streams. I was like the band playing a lot of small clubs. I mean, I
yeah.
was streaming sometimes 2 and 3 times a week on different shows. I mean,
Oh,
I'd go on
bro,
a show and there'd be 5 people watching,
yeah.
and I'd still go on the show. Like
Yeah.
it just, and I'd still make sales. But it was like a snowball, a cartoon where the snowball
Hmm.
keeps rolling
Yeah.
down the hill, and all of a sudden it starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger,
Yeah.
and you're like, how did we get here? Like this thing's a massive boulder of snow, and it started as this little tiny thing.
Yeah.
And that's really how it happened. There was never, other than there was a night I went on Raging Golden Eagles, and he has a lot of viewers. And I
Right.
think
Yeah,
I
he does.
made
Yeah.
$4,000 that night.
Holy
That
shit.
was the biggest night of the entire campaign. But other than that, it's been pretty steady.
I bet that was one hell of a night, though, feeling
It
good,
was.
bro.
He had me on for. I was on his show for 4.5 hours.
Oh,
Yeah.
shit.
I mean, we were talking
Well,
about
you ain't
everything.
careful. Rex will keep you on here all
Oh
night.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Speaking of which, we've already hit our hour, but I can go another 10 minutes or so.
Well, we appreciate
Yeah.
every minute
I
you
mean,
give
do you
us.
have any other
Uh,
questions or anything that you wanted to ask? Or
Oh, Professor.
Actually, just
Do
great
I
getting to
have
talk to
questions?
you, man. And
That's all I have is questions.
just want to say again, I really love the project, man.
Well,
Looking
thanks.
forward to the rest of the story, and I wish I could have got in on those figures. I just couldn't afford them, but they're beautiful.
Do you
Yeah,
think that people overall, when all 6 that the way it was turned out, a slow I mean, it's not like, okay, you'll get everything all at once, but they appreciate that you've mailed out what you've mailed out so far, and that they never. You think they're going to be pleased with the overall experience? I mean,
I
not just
think
that it's a good story, great art, but
right.
just the way it was executed.
I think most do, because it's like getting a surprise gift. Like
Mhm.
you forget about it, and one day you're like, oh my gosh, there's a new issue.
Yeah,
There's sort of it keeps the energy and excitement going. I have had a few kind of annoyed by it. They're like, I was expecting all 6 at once, and to me this is still late, even though
but
you're sending them. But
again, I mean, and like, but here, it's hard for me to bitch about waiting because I'm a big Ethan supporter, and obviously, Wreck Planet took almost 3 years. So, um, but the cool thing about the way you did it was instead of having to wait, 18, 24 months or whatever to get one big book, we've gotten, a nice chunk of the story. And then, well, what was it, about 6 months later or so? Then when we got another chunk.
Did
So,
you
Yeah.
mail out the first 3? How did you do it?
yeah, I mailed all
yeah,
the first 3 together, and now when people back, of course, they get the first 4 together. And I mean,
Yeah.
eventually, when they're all
Right.
done, backers will get all 6 at once. But
Hmm.
that's why I think in the beginning people were questioning. They're like, why is he doing it with 6 floppies? Why doesn't he just do one graphic novel? Well, now you see why. If I'd done this at one
exactly.
graphic novel, you'd all still be waiting for
Yeah.
anything. Like you wouldn't have
Right.
anything. So the
Because
fact that it was
everybody,
broken up.
and
I had
I
to
think,
bust mine up as well, Professor. I had like 29 pages completed. The only other thing that I could possibly do, and it was originally meant to be black and white, and may stay black and white. I haven't made up my mind on that, but is coloring. So
Yeah.
I had to bust. I said, I have an elephant in the room. I have this big story, and it's really cutting into the backstory. So I've decided to uh, bust it up and do a 36 page and with a 28 page supplement, and both together will give you 64 pages.
Right.
So I had to bust it up into 2 books, and which was right the opposite of what I did with Ashcan. I was only thinking about 12 pages, 10 to 12 pages, which you have to go by 4, so it's going to be 12. But I thought that's so small and it's stapled, and I used to work for World Color. We didn't do any of the Marvel books, although World Color up north had those contracts, and did Marvel Comics, and so I knew something about printers. So expanded it to 24 pages,
Yeah,
which
I
is
mean
pretty big for a little
it,
preview.
it
But
is, and I mean, what you have to realize is even without issues 5 and 6, if you add 0 in the handbook to issues 1 through 4, I've already delivered over 150 pages worth of content
yeah,
already.
how should I read that
So
when I get it? Should it be like start with issue 0?
uh, that's
How would you? What's the best way to read it? I guess is my question.
the way
Well,
I
that's,
rolled it out was 1 through 3, and then read 0 before you do 4, before you go
Okay.
past 3, only
Okay.
because it gives some context to 4
Okay.
in a way
ah,
that
so I
sort of.
got it right by accident.
That's okay. It still works, but when you read 0, you'll be like, oh, I see. Now this explains why that,
Yeah.
in 4
Yeah.
was such a big deal. So you can read it in any order you want. You don't have to have 0 for it to work.
Right.
It just adds some
Because you
context.
try and do standalone stories, do you not?
I blew a burger.
In every issue?
No, I mean
Yeah,
it's an
so
arc.
that's
It's a
good.
6-issue
They all
arc.
went out at the same time.
Yeah.
But they do
Good.
kind of, when I shipped 1 through 3 together, the way 3 ends, it felt like a conclusion to that
Like
episode, sort of. You know what I
minor-
mean? Like, okay, we're done with that part of the story. Now we're moving on to part B. So
Yeah.
I felt like those 3 issues together really worked well. It's like rolling out a TV series, you know? I mean, or a season at a time or whatever. I kind of look at it like that, you know?
Now, after this, are you going to go with Indiegogo again? Or are you going to do like
That's the problem.
another platform?
I know why it was shadow banned. It was because of that artwork. I mean,
Right.
there's no mystery to me. I just don't like the way
Yeah, bro.
they
Right.
didn't come back and allow me to, like, after I
Right.
fixed it, nothing happened. So, but they haven't done that to the new one. So, I'm not crazy about using them again. But at the same time, I'm not yet fully convinced that it's a good idea to go anywhere else yet.
Right. Right.
But it's going to be at least another year before I
Yeah.
launch another campaign anyways, because I've got to finish this one up.
Right.
So by then I'll know, you know what I mean?
Did you
Like,
did you
I
set
can watch.
did you set an end date for yourself on the campaign?
Not yet.
A complete date?
I seriously am trying to find a way to hit 100K and then close it. There's something in me that just wants it to. I want
Sure.
to find a way
Yeah.
to hit 100. I mean, I'm at 78 right now.
Yeah.
It is possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not that far.
And when
Yeah.
I get issues 5 and 6 done, there are going to be people who have been waiting for me to finish it before they're going to order it, and I think they're like, okay, he's done with them. Now I'll back it. There's some people that are like that. They've told me that. They're
Yeah.
like, when you're done with issue
I mean,
6
that's
and we
one
hear
thing.
everybody got all their books, then I'll back it.
There's something
It's
that
like, okay.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what lights one.
Yeah, when they like, okay, it's going to close out. Now, how are you going to do that? Because would it be on the second chance that you have like around 13,000 on? Is that what you would like? Okay, I'm doing a show, or
No,
I
I
mean,
mean,
I
I
don't
would
know.
close out.
Do you have a
close out-
YouTube channel, Professor?
Yeah, it
You
is.
do.
Yeah, it's
And why do I not know about this? I guess because I stream too much.
Yeah, it's at
Yeah.
it's at Professor Murf. So if you just type Professor Murf, it'll pop up.
Okay.
Or it should.
All right.
But yeah, what I'll do is it would
Can
be a
somebody drop
closeout
that
for
link in the chat, please? If not, I will.
It would be a closeout for the original Shadow Band campaign. That would be
Okay.
fun. Because you understand, the second chance is just there.
Right.
I just created
Right.
it so that it could be found when
Right.
you search on
Right.
Indiegogo.
Right,
That was
right,
the only
right.
reason why I created it, honestly, because there was no other way to find it. And it allowed a doorway for them to go in and find the hidden one.
Thank you.
So, newsflash, guys, you want to get around the shadow banning? Create a second chance page, put your book's name on it, and put a link right there at the top in the story part to the band page, and people can find it. That's the way you do it.
No, very nice.
You know? So, and that's what I did. So,
611 subscribers. Good for you.
yeah, it's doing pretty good. I mean,
Now you have 612, my friend.
well, thanks. Appreciate it.
Appreciate that.
But yeah, the next campaign will be Blackout. There's some videos on my site where you can see that.
There we go.
takes place in the 1970s in Manhattan during the blackout when Manhattan went dark for 2 days and the Son of Sam was running around shooting people. So it's more of a horror, urban, totally different vibe. We're not talking 18th century warfare anymore. Now we're talking 1970s gritty New York, monsters in the shadows, serial killer stuff. So it's a
Cool.
totally different
Awesome.
world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah, I think noir is there's been some noir projects on Kickstarter and here, and I plan on doing sort of like a superhero type noir, something you like set in the golden age,
Yeah.
but what you didn't really get, you were getting in films and movies, but not that much.
Mhm.
Maybe the spirit.
Yeah.
Maybe the spirit did some of that with
Yeah.
the designing and the shadows and stuff. And
Yeah,
but
I'm going
by
more
and
for
large, it was
I'm going more for the
pretty.
stuff we saw in the 70s, like the real gritty, like the Death Wish,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dirty
Yeah.
Harry,
Uh,
those really gritty, dingy,
yeah,
you
especially
urban
in the early
movies.
70s.
Yeah.
And not politically correct
Right,
by
right.
any means. You had
Yeah.
black exploitation
Right,
films.
right.
You
Oh, yeah.
had even in horror, you had
Pam
like
Grier.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Pam
Yeah.
Grier,
Yeah.
right?
Blackie
Shaft.
Dynamite, yeah,
Yeah.
Shaft. He's one bad mother.
That's
Yeah,
that's the vibe. The disco era, the late
Yeah.
70s.
Yeah.
Studio 54. There's actually on my Twitter, you'll see a shot from it where Diane's in a jumpsuit and she's in Studio 54.
So are we gonna get a
Oh,
disco
wow.
werewolf?
A disco werewolf? Yeah. Now that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Who knows?
that's the book you're going to do. We already got a Smokes the Fog and weaponized
The
werewolf.
thing
So
you gotta realize is, whatever your totem is, that's your animal. So who's to
Yeah.
say there'll be wolves at all? I mean, it could be a were
Oh, that's
pigeon
true.
for all we know.
Mm.
All right, a were rat, right? There's lots of rats in Manhattan. So,
Yeah.
and she would still have to go get
I've
the
actually
pelt.
read a few stories with were rats.
Yeah,
in
they've
them.
been used before,
Not too
but
bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
there's definitely got to be a were rat in a
well,
New York.
I like that idea.
Okay, help me with the name, Shadowhawk. The vampire.
Nosferatu.
Thank
Nosferatu.
you. I have to be looking at it to say it. He had a rat like because people were returning from World War One,
Mhm.
and it was plague. I mean, there was more people die for returning troops after World War One because they spread disease from the trenches, and you almost had a pandemic around the world after World War One because troops are returning home and bringing back a lot of that disease into the country,
Oh, wow.
and they made that vampire look more rat-like. I think he's one of the scariest. I mean, with the German
He
expressionism
was
and
a
whatnot.
strange-looking dude to begin with. They didn't have to do
Yeah.
a
He
lot.
was strange. Yeah.
Well, I
So-
actually like when they did Salem's Lot in the late 70s,
Mhm.
and they
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of redid Nosferatu.
Barlow.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
probably the
Mr.
best
Barlow.
remake.
Yeah.
Yeah, that motherfucker
Yeah.
was scary, dude.
Yeah.
It's, the guy's name is Max Schreck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
actor. Yeah, but it's
Hey,
funny you
Genuine
mentioned it.
Comics.
There's another
Nailed
film. The early
Hey, Dave.
20s, the early film era. There's a lot of creepy movies. There's one called.
Have you been
Hacksaw.
on with Dave before? He's over in the
No,
Netherlands.
me and Dave always say hi to each other on Twitter. Though we're always liking each other's posts.
Yeah,
so
Dave is a
Yeah.
really good dude.
probably need
Yeah.
to go hang out. I love his art.
Yeah.
All right.
I have yet to be on with him either, and it's probably a time thing. But yeah, I need to get with him too, and
Yeah.
at some point, maybe when Devil Flyer #1 launches, and I just like to get together and talk comics, and I don't know how much film, or pop culture has probably been an influence. I guess you were a kid of the 80s and 90s.
80s, yeah.
80s.
90s, I was in college, so really, I'm more of an 80s kid.
Yeah.
Like,
And 80s
culturally.
was a great time, right? I mean,
Yeah, everybody raves
culturally.
about the comics of the 90s, but to me, the best comics were in the 80s. All
Yeah.
the most iconic books that we all
Yeah, I had a lot of
praise
fun in the
today.
80s. I know.
were
Well, I
in the
mean, the
80s.
black and white, it started off, and then you had the direct market, which was the death. You're old enough to remember spinner racks
Mhm.
and going into grocery stores or going into pharmacies or places like that. And once they did away with that, a child can't go into a store and go, oh, look, and discover a comic for the
Yeah.
very first time. They have to go to a specialty shop.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, well, I
it
mean, what-
didn't take but about 3 years for the numbers to start,
yeah.
the distribution to change, and now we've cut our own throat with this direct market.
Yeah, it was a shame because when the specialty shops opened, it was really exciting back then because I
Hmm.
saw books I'd never even heard of.
Oh yeah, yeah,
In the spinner racks, it was Marvel, DC, and that was pretty much it. But
yeah.
then when the
Charlton
stores
maybe a
opened, I
little
was
bit.
like, what is all this? Apple Comics, Arrow Comics? Who are all these
Uh-huh.
people? You know, like
Pacific Comics,
yeah.
Eclipse Comics,
Yeah,
First Comics,
and it was just a
yeah.
wall of stuff you'd never heard
Teenage
of.
Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's
Yeah.
what
Oh
really
yeah,
blew up the 80s, I think,
used to be
Yeah, yeah.
so much good stuff.
because everybody saw, and it was a slow roll for them, even though they were successful from the very beginning. Once they hit the toy market and hit the, got somebody to deal with their, marketing,
Mhm.
they really took off with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, getting the TV show, getting the first Hasbro toys out, and it's been going ever since. Made them multimillionaires. I mean, that's lightning in a bottle. And yet I go back and look at it now, and it looks like a glorified underground comic, the artwork.
But that's the thing. Back then, you could do that, and people
Uh-huh.
would embrace it. Today, everything has to have such a high level of polish now.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
not everything. There's stuff
Right.
obviously being published out there that shouldn't be published because it looks horrible.
I think
But
a
what
lot
I
of
mean is
people.
the standard of illustration and
Yeah.
skill is
Yeah.
so much higher now than it was back then
Yeah.
that it's really hard for someone to come out of the gate with that indie look to their work and have
Uh-huh.
it get any sort of attention anymore.
Any traction.
Yeah, because there's
Yeah.
just so much amazing art out there now
Mhm.
because the illustration field collapsed and a lot of the illustrators came running to comic books. So you got these high level illustrators that can't get work doing illustration anymore, doing comics, and they have a much higher skill level in terms of drawing and painting than a lot of these artists did back then. And they were great artists back then, but I'm just saying your run of the mill comic artists back then. I
Oh,
look at some of this stuff and I'm like, that would not fly today. That eye needs to be fixed. That face looks weird. That, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't.
Mhm.
The polish isn't there in a lot of cases. And I'm talking Marvel and DC books. I'm not even.
Who
talking
were some of
indies.
your favorite artists?
Bernie Wrightson.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Mike-
one of his favorites.
Michael Golden, who I think is honestly a genius. I think he's a
Yep.
genius.
Yeah.
The guy's a
Did you
genius.
read Micronauts?
I love Micronauts. Yeah, and
I
and,
love Professor
he,
Murf.
he used to do
Yeah.
he did a book. he
I
did a
think
book
we'll
called
adopt
Rom.
him, Shadow.
Yeah,
I
remember
think so.
Rom?
Yeah,
Oh
Ron.
yeah, dude, I got the whole run.
Yeah, and then of course Brian Boland.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Did you read his
Uh,
Camelot 3000?
Yes.
Yeah.
Loved his stuff. I used to like
That's what
artists-
introduced me to his artwork. Of course, he's a British artist, and
Yeah.
people over there in
2000 AD.
England,
Yeah.
it's almost like if you grew up in BBC, all the actors and actresses that are from Great Britain.
Mhm.
Every now and then you'll get a British actor come over in Hollywood and act, and you'll get to know them like Attenborough or somebody,
Yeah.
but they're not, by and large, you don't know this whole staple of actors and actresses, and they probably don't know, although Hollywood has a bigger footprint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great actors and actresses that I just never were exposed to growing up that were English.
I used to love Joe Jusko's paintings.
Oh,
covers
yeah.
Of
On
Oh,
the
Savage
trading
Sword of
cards
Conan.
and stuff.
I would
Oh,
buy the
dude, yeah,
magazine
when he was
sometimes
doing
because of the covers.
that run on Savage Sword, man, I
So good.
was in heaven. I
Yeah.
couldn't wait for that thing to come out. Like,
Yeah.
Were you a
And-
Conan fan?
I just love the violence because you couldn't get
Yeah.
that in other comics. It would show beheadings and like it went because it was a magazine.
I
didn't
think
have
they
to go by
treated,
the code.
though, my overall impression, and this may have just been my impression at the time, was that they got crappy inkers.
Sometimes, like
Sometimes.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Buscema's work still looked good in it.
And
like
I
it's-
think they tried it as a tryout book for new artists and inkers.
they cranked that thing out really fast. Like
Yeah.
it was pulp comics, but that's kind of what I liked about it. It just
Yeah.
had that pulp feel. It wasn't, you know what I mean, but it was still, even though it was done fast, it was still done well. And I don't know, something about those comics. It was like you were doing something wrong reading them. Like, like they also had one called Savage Tales, which was really like,
Oh yeah, I remember
you remember
Savage
that
Tales,
one?
dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah, that was another good one. So, yeah, those, and of course,
Yeah, I got
the
into a lot
usuals.
of those, back in the day, man. It's just like anything that caught my eye, I was like, ooh, that looks cool.
Yeah, there was some high illustration. The covers of the D&D modules, I would just sometimes look at those
Oh
things,
yeah,
walk through
yeah.
the hobby shop and just look at
Were
some of those
you in
pages.
D&D?
Not that much, but I loved the art.
Yeah.
Like I would just stare at those books and
Yeah.
just like look at the art. I was more into the art than the game.
Did you see
know what I mean?
Barlow's Aliens?
Barlow's Aliens?
Barlow that he did Aliens, fully painted and
Oh,
illustrated.
you mean for Dark Horse?
For Dark Horse?
No, it was
Did
like for illustrative. It
No,
was
I don't think I've seen that.
I
Oh.
I mean,
forget
I've
the
seen Dark
name of it,
Horses.
but Barlow something. Yeah, it's like
Hmm.
he did aliens, different alien life forms, and when it comes to alien, it's like our references: animals, plants,
Yeah.
humans, and they all seem to be bipedal, or we'll add some more limbs. But there's something. Our point of reference is Earth, right? We've never really been out there, and if you were to try and think up something original, it's kind of hard, right? Because we've
Yeah.
not experienced like a liquid creature, or our
Well,
reference is what we know.
the original is overrated, and
Yeah,
why I
yeah,
say that is, you can make something original by just taking things people already know, and mixing them up and putting them in a new setting, a new time period. I did
yeah.
it with War Party. We've all
Right.
seen werewolves before. We've all seen
Right.
we've probably seen weregators before, right? There's nothing new under the sun. We've seen shaman. But when you take it and you put it in the 1750s in the
Yeah.
middle of a war, all of a sudden it's interesting. Like it's
Have
different.
you looked
So,
at your analytics? And I'll close out on this. I don't really want to be respectful of your time, but we don't have any time limit on here. But uh, have you looked at your analytics on War Party about like, okay, I got so much support from Facebook, I got so much support through YouTube. Have you
yeah,
kind of broke that down a little bit?
I don't know if there's much value in it because I don't know how much of it is really true. It's
Yeah.
whatever Indiegogo tells you.
Right.
The only analytics I pay attention to is when I do a stream or I go, I look at what have I made that week, what have I done this week, and how how much have I pulled in, and
Yeah.
the best analytics are what are you offering, because if you offer stuff people want,
Right.
they back it.
Well,
Like
whether
that.
you make any money off this stream or not, I hope you'll come back and
Well,
join us
I don't
again.
do every. Yeah, I mean, I haven't done streams in a while. I don't just do a stream to sell stuff. I like to hang out and talk. I mean, it's therapeutic in a weird way. But
Yeah,
my point is, the figure was a prime example. When I rolled that thing out and it
Uh-huh.
sold out in 48 hours, I was like,
Boom.
"There's your analytics right there." I mean, the
Yeah.
customer tells you what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong,
Uh-huh.
and all that other stuff. It's
Stuff
interesting
like
to look
that, has
at.
that been fulfilled?
Hmm?
Like the little one-off, like the person got their statue, or did they have to wait for the books, or
No,
did it go
I
out?
shipped them out separately, but they went out about 5 or 6 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
took a while to get together, and they were not cheap, but I still made a profit on them, so that was the good news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Right,
but I
now
mean, they
we're
were
all
$275 a piece. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Were the
What-
hands
what-
and stuff like
what-
handmade? Actually, I mean,
what?
the
Handmade,
clothes and stuff for the
custom.
little
Yeah,
figures.
everything was except the doll herself, but everything else
That's
is
wild,
custom made.
dude.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I hand painted
and-
all the war paint on her and everything.
Mhm.
Did you go like
And-
to Michael's or Hobby Lobby or someplace like that and get all the feathers
And I
and
actually
other?
had a costume designer who works at a theater here do the costumes.
Wow.
Oh,
Painted it,
okay. Awesome.
So-
Yeah. So you've learned quite a bit from this campaign.
Oh yeah, get as much done as possible before you launch, and just be upfront about. If I'd have known this was going to roll out in pieces, I would have just gone ahead and said that at the beginning of the campaign. But I didn't realize that's how I was going to do it when I launched. But now
Yeah.
I know if you're going to do a mini series, you probably need to build in at least 2, if not 3, fulfillment.
Last question, because I want to be respectful of your
appreciate it.
time, and I know we went over. Unless Shadowhawk had something else.
I'm good for now.
Okay. You. How much did you have done of the project? You said it was 100 and how many pages? 60.
Now it is, yeah. and that's not
or
counting
now it
issue 0.
is. So
Yeah.
actually, the page count's probably
It
been
was originally going to be
extended.
140,
Okay.
and
So how much of that did you have when you launched?
I was working on issue 4 when I launched.
Oh, okay.
But the problem was I added pages to each issue.
Yeah.
So I had to go back and beef up 2, 3,
Retroactively
4.
went back and
Yeah,
kinda
yeah.
that must have been
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah, and then I also had to stop to do the handbook because I wanted to ship that out immediately.
Yeah.
I had to stop to write 0. I'm stopping now to finish up the war diary. I also got delayed working for John Malin. You know, these things kind of like
Yeah.
over domino effect. But it's one of those things where when things are going well, when it rains it pours.
Yeah.
And stuff starts coming your way.
Well, life
opportunities coming your
happens,
way.
doesn't it?
Yeah, but the point
Yeah.
is, as long as the work's still getting done and stuff's still getting shipped out and everybody's still happy, that's all I can ask at this point.
Yeah.
So,
I can only speak for myself, but I'm a happy customer.
All right.
well,
Since you
well,
all
it's
right, I
good to hear.
lied. I
Thanks,
lied,
Shadowhawk.
so you might knock me down a point for this. But if you could grade this, since you're a professor, if you had to grade this interview, would you give me a B minus, a plus, a C?
Solid A. I've had an enjoyable time. This is great. I love talking about myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we like talking to you as well. I hope you'll rejoin us sometime.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah,
Just
thank
let me
you.
know. A lot of times I'll just be drawing or something, and I can drop in, share my screen or something.
All
let you
right.
know what
Yeah.
I'm
And
working
draw
on.
as you, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Since I draw
Yeah.
digitally, anyways.
Yeah, because there's a lot more. Yours is kind of unique to me, Professor. Your campaign. I'm not just blowing snow up your, whatever. It's interesting. You had a different approach to this crowdfunding, at least on this project. The way you broke it up and just, I don't know if you call it a subscription, but I mean it's interesting, and I still have more questions and would like to learn more about it.
We'll do it again.
Okay,
How about
very
when
good.
How about when the war diary rolls out? I'll come back on.
Okay, and you expect that when?
A couple months.
Okay,
So
yeah.
get it
That'd
printed
be
and
great.
shipped and everything.
So you think the final issue will come out
That's looking like the end of the year, guys.
end of the year? Okay,
Yeah,
so I
'cause,
still have time to back it.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Because
pages
yours has
left to
been
draw.
really high on my list to
Yeah,
back. It's
yeah.
just, I've been trying to get my own book out, fulfillment, and
Yeah.
also, giving other artists money. And when
Right.
you're producing, it's, all your resources pretty much have to go to that.
Yeah, and I mean it's fairly
So I
detailed work.
apologize, but
It's not as detailed as Wreck Planet or anything, but
yeah,
I mean it's pretty detailed artwork. Lots of soldiers and cannons and battle scenes. And
it's stunning. Yeah.
yeah,
And
it's not easy to do this stuff fast.
yeah,
It just can't be done
would you
fast.
say I'm lying now again because the questions just keep coming. Your
Yeah,
reenactment buddies probably were some of your early, I mean, because it's a historical period piece.
Yeah, I don't know. They tend to like things that are strictly historical. Like,
Oh, okay.
they don't
Okay.
even like fictionalized stuff. They
You
like
don't
stuff
think
that's
that
based on-
translated into backers? Okay.
Probably not. No,
Yeah.
this was strictly comic book.
Yeah.
People disillusioned.
Well, you mentioned
comic
Facebook.
fans like
That's why I
Shadowhawk.
asked. You mentioned your
Exactly.
Facebook crowd
Yeah,
and the way
that
you
was,
kind of did it.
Yeah, and that's Claiborne went to that market as well, sold
Mm.
well to that market as well. But it was a true story on a real person, so there was no
Yeah.
fantasy elements. I think the comic readers tend to like a little more fanciful,
Supernatural
stuff.
or
Yeah, I mean,
whatever.
I get
Yeah.
it. It's a little more exciting, and you're not
Kinda like-
pinned down by making everything have to be totally accurate, which you have to kind of do that when you're telling a true story, and it frees me up to just have fun with it and just fit it within the history. So thanks, Lorenzo. Appreciate it. But
Yeah,
thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I got to run, but we'll do it again.
Sounds great.
And
Thank you
Sounds
for
great.
coming on.
Thanks
thanks
again.
again, Shadowhawk. Appreciate the kind words.
No,
Hail the chat.
no problem, sir.
Well, that was
Wow.
wonderful.
Yeah, great
Yeah.
guy.
And
I
I'm just
I really
gonna
hope
say-
every time we do one of these that the guys that we interview are going to turn out to be cool.
yeah. Well, I'm not. If you just talk to people, I mean, this is what's missing in society, Shadowhawk. If you just talk to people, generally people like to have a conversation and get to know each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's watch the trailer again, once again.
Yeah, sure. I got no problem with that.
And I think I clicked on the wrong thing. Okay. Hit replay instead of one of those little bastard windows.
Everything changed when war reached the Americas. Caught between the French and the British, my family paid the price. Only my darling Sarah survived. They took her away. We couldn't save them, but we will save her. 5 men against thousands, how can it be done? We are not merely men. War has brought out the beast in us all. And we will have our vengeance. For we are
The War Party.
Go back in today. Definitely. If you can. Show Professor Murf. Show Justin some love.
Sorry. Great story. Great art. Absolutely beautiful book.
Yeah. And we got an A.
Yeah, how about that? And back it if you have it.
How to Draw Comics by Dan Lawless. Hey, Dan, how are you? That art is awesome.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure,
even on
Dan.
Choppy Ass Theater.
Yeah.
I think this is the first time Dan's in here. He must have a wrench, right?
Yeah, you better give him one. He ain't
Better
got
give him
yet.
one. That's right. You
Hail,
bet.
Dan. Good to see you, man.
And if you
Big
haven't,
fan of your art, man.
oh yeah, fortunate to get to talk to Dan over on Apex Comics. Here is Dan's. I'm already subscribed to him, but if you haven't subscribed to Dan and his channel on YouTube, definitely go do that.
Yeah, Lorenzo just said he doesn't have a wrench, right?
Yeah, I beat him to it. I knew he hadn't, so
Yeah.
I think I
That's
just
awesome.
gave him one.
Nice to see Dan.
Yeah. So, Dan, you're
Feel
welcome
free
here
to drop
anytime.
any links you want to, my friend.
Absolutely. Well, there's his to the YouTube. If he, he's working on a project, so hopefully,
Yep.
he can. Yeah, we're gonna have to get together over there on Jimmy's channel, Dan. Of course, we could do it over here too, and talk Conan.
Oh, cool.
Whatever
Yeah.
you guys works out is fine with me. Fine with me. I'm good with it. Yeah, great to see you, Dan.
Yeah. Always
Thanks
good.
for coming by. That was a pretty good interview with Justin.
Yeah, man. The professor is. I like him a lot, man.
Been wanting to get
a
him
little
on.
soft spoken. You might have wanted to turn him up a little bit, but that's okay.
No, well, that's on his end.
I know. I didn't know if
he needs to
you
turn
had
his
any.
up.
Yeah, I didn't know if you had any control on your end, bro.
Probably not. Not with that.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Yeah, there's probably only so much you can do.
hey, Jonas
Jonas.
Olson in the house. Still
Howdy,
have people flooding in, Shadowhawk. That's good.
I see that. Yeah.
Yeah. I know you probably had a rough day today. I hope it worked out good with you, and you don't have to talk about it now.
No.
We can talk about it off screen or not at all. But I hope you had a good day. I hope this made your day a little bit better.
Oh yeah.
Getting to talk to Justin about War Party, because
this was actually a nice change.
yeah, nice change. Yeah. I mean, he has a very interesting campaign. I one thing that I didn't ask him, when did he do the animation when he changes into the wolf on his trailer?
Oh, I believe he did. He said he did pretty much everything except the color.
I kind of thought. I just wanted to confirm that and pin that down. It's like So, and then
But
that would lead
but
to another question. I guess you've worked in some animation then.
well, he did say he had a master's degree in illustration and animation.
Okay. All right. Well, you caught that. I didn't know
Mhm.
he said
Yes.
animation on his master's.
He mentioned the animation right up
And
front.
are you really a professor?
I just call myself professor because it sounds cool.
Well, some do that, you know. Um,
You can
and
call me
and like,
Professor
you know, I
Shadow.
ask him, do you have tenure? It's like you know,
Bro,
it's
that's
not
yeah.
related to his comic, but I like to ask, you can ask Dan. I probably ask him a million questions that were unrelated, you know. We just talk comics, had a good time.
Oh, yeah.
He was gracious enough to give us 2.5 hour interview
Well,
over
that's
there.
what I like about your interview style, Rex, is you never know where it's gonna go.
Yeah, I kind of play it by ear, my friend. Yeah, I wake
But
in a
it always ends up being a good conversation, and we find out a lot about the people we're talking to. So, I mean, seems
oh,
like it always works out, you know?
yeah. Well, I like to ask questions that you won't generally get on other streams because when you know people are talking campaigns, they tend to ask the same questions,
Yeah. So
and
Rex throws in a ringer every now and again, like, so Justin,
that's all I
exactly
am
how
is a
big
big
is his
ringer.
penis? That's
That's all I check out your drainage in your sink. I'm probably that ring around the drain. I'm probably there already. That's nothing. That's all I am. You know, is
dude, now I'm gonna have a
a
bad
ringer.
dream about that tonight. And Rex is gonna be in my sink talking to me. Shadow, come here. Try to sleep, Rex. I
I've
gotta talk to you.
I seem to recall you asking someone about a car accident before Devil Fire Momentum. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Car accident? Somebody have a car accident?
Um. Yeah. I mean, I that might have been Greg Levitri. I don't know. I ask sometimes I ask some off the wall questions. You know, I mean, if they're going to go there, it's like, oh, not to get too personal, but I'm not afraid to press a little bit
Oh
on,
no, no.
you know, that's how you learn things. Now, if they, you know, if it's a touchy subject, I back off, you know, but, or maybe not even go there. But, you know, I like to ask some probing
Sometimes
questions.
you back up.
Yeah. Well, sometimes, yeah. Sometimes they go right for the juggler, right?
Yeah, sometimes it's like out of nowhere. Rex
It's
is right
like,
in the
take
guy's
no
back pocket.
prisoners. Take no prisoners. Death to the infidel.
God.
Was that how Vic injured his back or some other way? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I probably
Vic
talked
don't even drive.
to Vic about his back and who knows? I mean, if you lay in bed and you lay wrong, oh man, a Charlie horse and things like that. I mean, you can hurt your back just by relaxing it too much.
Well, he originally hurt his back stripping.
Stripping? Okay. Well, we won't go there. That's the
All that
seedier
crazy
side.
hip motion, you know.
Hip motion. Yeah. Probably throw his neck muscle out or
I
something.
threw on my sacroiliac.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, I was glad to get this show off my Salamandroid. You know,
I know.
first Salamandroid cover, folks, right there.
Mine's better. It's in the raw.
Yours is better. Oh, okay.
It's perfect because I could read.
Yeah, right. Well, this one needs a press. There
Well, you
are.
can read it. All you gotta do is break open that little shell and take away all the value that you.
I will probably break it away and have it pressed, and maybe. You know, I have this book and can read it in warts and all.
Damn it! Forgot about
That's right.
it.
If it's good stuff, most of it's going to be.
See, up until warts and all, I was one of the privileged few that could read Salamandroid whenever I want.
Well, most of the stuff is reprinted in trade paperback, just like Murph's probably going to do that. He'd be crazy not to combine it all into one
Of
book, and
course not. Yeah, that's
you
what I
know,
said. When he puts out the trade paperback, I'll probably
yeah.
buy that too, just so I. Well,
And then he can put that in the comic stores as well. I really believe
I think
CG
I already.
needs to
No,
go the
I don't
extra
have.
mile and get those barcodes and get that ISBN number and release it
Oh,
out through
but you know what?
Diamond or through some distribution
I
and get
forgot though,
into the comic shops.
and we didn't really touch on it too much while we were talking about Professor Murph's campaign. But he
Yeah.
also did a slipcase that's
Oh,
being made to fit all 8 issues, 1 through 6, plus
that's
number 0,
nice.
die any. Yeah, or well,
Uh-huh.
actually, 9 or 10 because he had the journal, the diary, 1 through 6, 0. So okay,
I
not
bet
like nine
I bet
nine
Dan
comics.
is drawing. Dan, are you drawing while you listen? A lot of people do that.
Anyway, but it's
They'll
gonna be
work and they'll listen.
a cool slipcase that'll go right up on your bookshelf. So technically, I mean, if
Hmm.
you're good with the slipcase, you don't even have to worry about buying it. But I'll buy the collected copy so that I
Hmm.
can keep my floppies in the slipcase perfect, and then
Hmm.
I'll just read the trade paperback. You know.
You know how the binders are an odd size. They do this. They have one thick and one thin, right?
Hmm.
How a binder is,
Yeah, yeah.
and you can set them up there, but it's you know you could do a box, like a box that would the binder would slide in that way, and then you could reverse it, and the another binder slides in the other way.
Yeah, okay.
You know, like they're
Hmm.
like this.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I don't know that there would be any value in that, but that would be pretty cool. Yeah, he says he is drawing. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Of course he is.
yeah. Of course you are. Yeah, got to keep busy.
He's
Um,
always drawing, right?
and we still have to edit my story. We still have to finish that one line, Shadowhawk, or whatever, a couple lines, couple spaces.
I thought we
I'd
okay.
like to
I
gloss over it and go over it once more, just real quick, make sure we got it all nailed down.
All right. Well, okay. We can. I thought we finished up, but all right, we can do.
Well, maybe we did, but let's go over it again just to make sure we have everything perfect.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's all good. I got no problem with that.
Okay.
And then I believe you started running some stuff past me on one of the next. We
Well, we
started
were
talking.
looking at layouts, I think.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I'm
talking
talking
about.
about, well, we've talked about two or three
I think
different
it was Sea
stories.
Demon. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think it was Sea
The Sea
Demon.
Demon, and then uh yeah,
Well, yeah, we already talked about
Second
the other
Skin,
one,
and
Dirty
we
Joe.
we
No,
talked about Dirty Joe, and yeah,
right.
yeah.
Not okay.
Now, as
Second Skin.
excited as I was about the Ash Can, woohoo! I can't wait till Devil Flyer #1 here pretty soon.
No, bro, I'm telling you, I already got
That's
people
awesome.
fucking asking me, where can I get #1? Like, you can't get it yet. You gotta wait.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've got to go on. I kind of hate. I kind of hate. I've had a mental shift here lately. Go fund my comic or whatever it's called, right?
Hmm.
Uh, and this shadow banning going on with the Indiegogo. It's like, do I stick with Indiegogo? Professor Murf kind of instilled in me, that I could back my book up to May. I mean, the way he was talking, April, May. But, if I go my fun comic, depending on how, work on, uh, I definitely want to probably launch it and be able to promote it before I really get too heavily working my other job, right? So it's already going to be somewhat late.
Well, at this
So
point, Rex,
later than I
I
would have
would,
liked. Huh?
and at this point, and I know you don't want to hear this, but until, and I love Luke Stone. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Until Fund My Comic becomes a proven outlet
Yeah.
for us, you
Yeah.
know, that we're good with, and does these guys are doing what they say they can do.
Yeah.
And no offense, Luke, I know you've been here for a while, man. You're doing great. So I hope everything works. But until it's a proven entity,
Yeah.
I would say if you were planning on launching on Indiegogo, do just like Mandy did. Launch it on the smaller site first, the new site, run it for 60 days, put it in demand, and then launch another campaign on
Like a second
Indiegogo.
chance. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if Indiegogo shadow bans you, it really don't matter because you're already funded, right? So, or if, but, well, Fund My Comics is not supposed to have any of that bullshit going on. So I would say run the Indiegogo first. You get shadow banned or what have you, and even if you don't make your goal, okay, fine, fuck you guys. Now I see how it is.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take my comic to Fund My Comic.
Now, if
And
Dillard was on here, which I did give him the link, but he never came on, he went when the professor
oh,
was.
I just thought you ignored him.
No, I did send him the link, and even told him to get in there. So I don't know why he asked for the link and he didn't come on, but
Well,
that's fine.
I was gonna tell him Professor Murf is a nice, well mannered guy.
Oh,
We don't need you coming in here causing trouble, miss. But
well,
that would have been me.
yeah, he probably would have talked about Luke's. I mean, he's been out talking about that, been a big proponent about Luke's
Oh
platform.
yeah, and
Hey, James Hayes.
and that's not a problem. I appreciate him doing that. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Luke's. I backed his first project and uh, all that stuff. I just hope because I mean we've seen people even with just comic book projects chew off more
Flash
than
in the pan. You're waiting to
well,
see
and
if it's a
we've
flash.
also seen people chew off more than they could bite off more than they could chew. I should say.
Oh yeah, and I
Uh,
mean running. I don't know how long they took to develop it. I mean, there is something to be said, which was said the other day on here. I think Dillard said it that he was the first to do it. The
right.
others have talked about it, Ethan and
Well, see, and
other
here's the other
people.
thing too, dude. And I hope these guys have thought about that. If this becomes super popular, this becomes the main
Right,
digital what do you want to call it social network platform or whatever that CG and indie artists are going to be using or CG what do you call it adjacent artists are going to try to use uh, at some point when you start getting so much fucking traffic that your server gets overwhelmed, now your site goes down. Are you
right.
guys prepared for that? Are
Yeah, I
you
don't know if
ready to
they're. Yeah,
Are you ready to fucking integrate more servers into your system as business grows? And
right,
I
right.
mean that's all
Oh
I
yeah,
would have.
there's a lot of questions. Yeah,
I mean those are the things I want to see make
and we
make
also brought up, are they going to play nice? I mean, are they going to be? I mean, if you
well.
run
I
on
mean there.
I mean, Indiegogo and Kickstarter, I mean, are they, a little upstart here? Okay, well, we'll do this.
Well,
We'll
see,
do
I
that.
mean for
Back to
me,
back.
Rex. I mean if I was of the means and had a way to do that, had
Yeah,
somebody
if
had
we
to
all
do it.
had $1 million or
Right.
$10 million.
If I could have done this crowdfunding thing, at
Right,
that point now, you have to when it comes to work, you have to remove your personal opinions
right,
from projects and all that kind of stuff.
right.
Whether or not you like the project, whether or not you like the creator, it's not about that. It's about whether or not it's gonna, sell well on your platform.
I'm sure there's
So,
bugs that have to be worked out in the system. There'll be things that they'll want to drop, maybe, perhaps
oh, I'm sure, yeah,
add.
I'm sure, and that's to be expected. But
Right.
I'm asking the big ones. Like, are you guys prepared if you gotta all of a sudden
Uh-huh.
buy another
Surge.
freaking,
Yeah,
server
yeah.
to accommodate the customer base that suddenly comes your way?
Well,
Are you?
almost like Justin's project, he does 14 something thousand, then
Mhm.
boom, it takes off like a rocket. It was a
Yeah,
slow
and then it
roll,
shoots up to
and then
damn
it
near
shoots
80.
up to 75,000 or more. Yeah,
Mhm.
just keeps going, and he's riding what must have been mind blowing. We really didn't go into that with him, but it must have been very mind blowing, right?
Well, he
To
did say
just
the
like,
one night.
wow, this is what success looks like, and I've hit 50,000. It must have been just a you know, an adrenaline and dopamine rush for him for a while.
Oh, dude, I must have been a night of
But I mean,
celebration.
he did the hard work. He was in campaign mode. He went on a lot of shows.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like he said, he was on one show for 4 hours.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
he turned it up and realized, hey, you know, this thing might be slowing down a little bit. I need to make more of a presence. Like
Uh,
he really turned it up, dude. I
hey,
was
Carol.
seeing him. I was seeing him everywhere for a while, you know. But that's what you got to do. Hi, Carol. Did you bring your crayon?
Well, Lorenzo had a question about, has Luke fulfilled a campaign before?
Yes, I believe he has.
Okay.
Maybe even two at this point.
Okay. Because I mean, I've just don't know that much about Luke. Although I know
Yeah.
of him, I don't really know him. So, but I'm sure there's a lot of people in the community that know Luke quite well.
Yeah. Well, he's. I believe Luke is an Aussie as well. So.
Yeah. Ooh,
But
I don't
again,
know if that's a
Michael.
good or a bad thing.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
You know,
I know a few decent bogan.
I do too, but then there's some bad ones too that I've, you know,
And then you
just
got some that are both.
yeah. And each one of them are definitely different, you know, in their thinking about things.
Yeah. But speaking of bogans, you got Bancroft working on his too. So I
Yeah.
believe. I mean, and nothing against Luke, but you know, Bancroft, he just seems very, very business oriented and very
Right.
professional. You know.
Right.
So
Nothing
I
wrong
don't
with
know.
that.
No.
I wish we had some more business oriented professional people that treated it as a profession and as a business, and not necessarily that. I mean, you can have both, right? You can have the joy and
Yeah, you can have
I mean the
fun, you
joy of
know, but
telling stories and the artwork and everything. You can have the whole enchilada, but you have to make the trains run on time, to use a old expression. Nothing, really.
I'm sorry, man. The wife is
Okay.
it's only something.
Hey, that's okay. That's fine. I mean,
No,
I'm a
just
big
looking at
proponent
that
of
stupid
blaming it
camera.
on the wife. Nothing, really.
I killed it right.
I'd like to.
Sitting right next to you. He's sitting right there.
Sometimes off the top turnbuckle, I'm telling you. Oh, suplex. What was that? Pile driver. Yeah, drive their head into the mat. Now, that mat had some give, but boy, you could jam some neck muscles.
Oh, dude, yeah, you could hurt somebody if you did
Oh,
that
if you
wrong.
don't know what you're doing, you know.
Oh, you remember when what was his name? Jake the Snake. He started doing that DDT
Yeah.
where he would grab him like it was gonna be a headlock almost, and then just drop his whole body weight onto their face. If
I
you
can't.
did that to someone for real, dude, you'd
Uh,
fucking kill him.
yeah. And one of them had a chop, right? Was it
Oh yeah,
Yamamoto
that's
or
right. Yeah,
whatever?
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, down in the South against Jerry Lawler, you know, he was like into the, you know, kind of like right here, not really their neck, but
Yeah.
you know, like he added the Oriental karate element to it,
No,
right?
seriously. And then they would turn their hand at the end of it, so you hear that big old slap when it hits.
Slap, yeah,
Pow! Like, whoa, shit, man.
and I mean, he was around for a good little bit. I hadn't thought about him until today. I mean, in years. I mean, but he was. I mean, was that his name, Yamamoto, whatever, the bald, you know, Oriental guy that's short
I think
and
so. Something like that.
do you chop? Yeah, I mean, you probably didn't get like the Mid-South wrestling like we did around here with Jerry Lawler.
It depended. We would get it like on one of the UHF stations, like on
Okay,
Saturday night.
Uh-huh.
if I got a chance to tune in, we would get Mid South and stuff. So I would see like
Okay.
yeah,
With
a whole different league.
Lance.
Because we had like up here it was I don't remember what the league was, but it
yeah.
was Midwest.
Well, a
So
lot
we
of
had like
them, when the WW came out, or at least was brought to my attention back in the 80s when you had Hulk Hogan and some others, uh, Lawler and who's the guy, Snap into a Slim Jim.
Macho Man,
Macho
Randy
Man
Savage.
Randy Savage. He can't see, he did all the through
Yeah,
Memphis
he was down
wrestling.
south. So
Yeah,
like
he was, yeah.
when I was growing up watching wrestling and stuff, it was like Dick the Bruiser, the Crusher, uh King Kong Brody.
And some of those
Uh
might have, migrate
Now
from
yeah,
other
they
venue and come
eventually Dick
occasionally. And
Dick
you
the
had the
Bruiser and the
lumberjack.
Crusher.
You had the
Yeah,
lumberjack.
Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And
I
he was a
remember
big
him.
guy. He was a tall guy compared to Lawler, you know.
Oh yeah, he was big too, man. He
Which
had
Jerry
barrel
Lawler,
chest.
I met him back in '83 at the very first comic book convention that I went to. He was one of the local people in Memphis that he got. Had Elvis been alive, they probably would have got Elvis, But he painted some. He brought in a piece that he did of Mickey Mouse that was pretty good, But he kind of dabbled in it when he wasn't wrestling. But um, I guess he was somewhat aware of comics and cartooning and whatnot. I don't know, but
No,
it's
pal,
been
that's
so many
pretty.
years ago. I don't remember what he said, but that was. I was thinking. And he came to Jonesboro last year, but neither I or John went to go see him. But it would have been nice. But I've seen him. He's marked off my bucket list, I guess. So some hoes you revisit, and some you just bypass and go on. I've already done
Right.
it. Seen it, done it. Wouldn't want to do it again. But yeah, actually,
Carol, you're hilarious. Look
I
at the
guess.
chat, right? Take a look
I'm
at the
trying.
chat before
No,
we
I
go.
don't want to. She's
Okay.
always got something to say. We could literally be asking for life-saving help in this chat, and Rex wouldn't notice until tomorrow. Probably so. Yeah, probably so, Carol. Well, I will solve your problem. I will go ahead and end it since we passed the 2-hour mark. I don't have to, but yeah, I and Shadowhawk probably talk a little bit behind the scenes, see how his day went, or I mean,
Yeah.
we really have interesting conversations behind the scenes, and I'm like, we ought to be broadcasting this, but
I don't want that much personal information.
well, yeah, emotional damage.
Emotional damage.
Well, some of it wouldn't want to be, but we really do have some good discussions, Shadowhawk.
Oh yeah, we
Yeah.
do. But
So,
that gives us ideas for the show and stuff too. So
oh, it does, yeah, and then we're talking about art stuff. It's like the storyline and like, oh yeah,
new
well,
campaigns.
and then I'm always
either I
asking you,
haven't
'cause
noticed or Rex
you're
hasn't.
the ultimate consumer. You've consumed a lot of this stuff. It's like, well, what do you like to see on a campaign?
Yeah.
What is interesting? And I don't ask you that a lot. I could probably ask you that a lot more. But
Well,
I,
see, the problem with me is I like it all.
oh yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah. No
I
matter
want the
how much
cards,
it
I want
costs,
the bookmarks, I
no
want the
matter
fucking
how much
figures.
it costs the artist to produce it, you want it.
I
I
want it
want it
all.
now.
Damn you.
I want it all, and I want it now. It's that old Queen song,
Now I am patient. I never complain when anyone
Uh,
says. Well, not never. I mean, if you haven't been doing updates and you're like 6 months without a fucking update, then I will hit you up and go, hey, are
right.
you still out there? Because I backed you.
And I used a lot of my channel for that, but I really didn't send out any updates. Probably the people have gotten,
No,
different
but you're on
things.
every day, Rex, and everybody sees you.
Yeah.
Like if you're streaming on a daily, there's a
But
lot of
there's
these
there's a
guys.
lot of people that don't tune in, and they, like Don
Well,
Chen
there's
asked me months ago, when's the book going to print? And I've
A
had
lot
other
of these
people.
too, when they launched the book,
No.
they were everywhere. They were all over YouTube. You saw them in chat. You saw them everywhere. And then after the book launched and they hit
Yeah.
their mark, all of a sudden you don't see them no. And I
Mhm.
understand you're working on the book or what have you, but
Right.
you still need to send updates to your customers.
Well, the big one to me is Dan Fraga. He was doing couch doodles. He was getting comfortably, and he was becoming a mainstay within
Dude, I'm
what
kind
we
of
call.
pissed at Braga right now because, yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, say good night, Gracie, and we'll go ahead and
good night, Gracie.
do our thing. Bow for now. Keep collecting. Thank you,
Say
Professor
hello.
Murf. Enjoyed
Say
it.
hello,
Hope
please,
you to
dude.
come back. Thank you, Dan, for coming in for the very first time. Enjoy the ranch. Come back anytime.
War Party back in tonight.
Whew.